Hello there, and welcome to Trek Prime, episode 27. I just realized we are on an odd numbered video, and we're going to be talking about an odd numbered Star Trek movie tonight, at your suggestion. And you know what they say about odd numbered Star Trek movies? So we're going to be talking about a movie whose history is messy, and I do mean messy. And I'm going to let you start on exactly why it was messy.
Yeah, it was just a plethora of things that just kept falling apart. I mean, that there was movies being made, sequels. I mean, they had Indiana Jones Last Crusade was being worked on. They had Ghostbusters 2 that was being
Batman.
worked on. Batman was coming out that year, and it seemed like people working on Star Trek 5 couldn't get ILM to do the special effects because they were being used, for these other projects, and that was like the first Star Trek movie where they didn't have ILM doing it. So you noticed a big difference in the quality of the special effects between the first four films and then this one. So what they did is they got some other companies that did lesser movies, I guess, like that, to do the special effects, and there's a whole thing about that, about special effects. But they spent $33 million on the film, and they got back $63 million, I guess. And the thing was, Paramount was expecting a return of like 200 and something million dollars, and to me it just seemed funny that whenever Paramount always makes an estimate on a return to a film, they always like quadruple what they think they're going to get, and they get less than that, and they say, oh well, it was a failure because it didn't make a return. Personally, as bad as Star Trek 5 was, they did make that money back that they spent filming it, and they got more. So I can't say it was a failure. I mean, maybe it wasn't the best one that they made, but it did make some money from it.
Oh, and by the way, just to let you know, according to Wikipedia, the people who did the effect was a guy named Brian Farron from in a group called Associates, and apparently one of their major effects jobs was for Little Shop of Horrors. So they were sort of used to doing kind of retro-y stuff and more the B-movie tradition.
Yeah.
And if you finish your point, I just wanted to say this is the first Star Trek movie I ever saw in the theaters. I kind of was a few swear words away from doing, shall I say, colorful metaphors, away from seeing Star Trek 4 in the theaters. I had to go see American Tail for the second time, but whatever, I liked that movie at the time. But anyway, the point was I went to see this. It was this when school got out. It was a summer movie. I believe, was it the first Star Trek summer movie that came out, 5?
I think so. If I remember right, yeah.
Now, I'm just going to say this. I have the movie on my trusty Blu-ray set. They're actually a reissue of the original Blu-ray set. They just put it in slimmer packaging. They often do. But, oh yes, and in my room cleaning it the other day, I found this.
Oh, yeah.
The comic book adaptation, which actually isn't a bad comic adaptation, except it actually adds things that were not in the movie. And it even changes things in the movie some ways. But it's a faithful visual adaptation. It just adds a lot of odd things. But
Star Trek 5 went through a lot of revisions here before they finally settled on it.
Yes, and I was reading about that. Apparently, the whole idea was that everybody on the Enterprise, but assuming you all know what this movie's about if you've seen it.
Yeah.
Do you think it bears repeating? Because I think we'll kind of get into it as we go along, I suppose.
Yeah.
Spock's half-brother, Sybok, who, if I understand it, was a person they were looking for Sean Connery to play.
Yeah.
They couldn't get him because he was filming The Last Crusade, Indiana Jones.
Yeah. So
they got Lawrence Luckinbill to play the part, which I think he did pretty well with. But the thing is that he was Spock's half-brother, and he was basically, bringing on Vulcans to follow him in his quest for Shakari, which was apparently a pagan Vulcan afterlife, Eden, as it were. And, I was wondering, looking at, this is a side question, in Enterprise they talked about a group called the Saranites, who were Vulcans who felt that Sarek was being interpreted incorrectly, and that the key to self-knowledge was emotion. Do you think that Sybok might have been a Saranite?
He might have been,
Or some similar movement?
Well, you see, the thing about the Saranites is that at the end of that episode on Enterprise, it seemed like the cause that the Serenites were fighting for kind of, came to its conclusion, more or less. So if there was another faction that was trying to pull away from Vulcan philosophy, I guess it would be a more extreme faction, because they're actually trying to get rid of the concept of total logic and embrace emotion at the same time. The Serenites were looking more for the other side. They were kind of looking for Sarek in his teachings, and they wanted to go back to that, and that seemed to be like the other direction.
Right, and again, though, they were kind of thinking that Sarek was not a total rejection of emotion.
No.
So you think maybe Zybok was from a splinter group off the Serenite movement who believed the key to self-knowledge was, in fact, total emotion?
Well, that would probably explain why he was banished. I mean, because at the time, like I said, everybody, was pretty much absorbed into the idea of what Sarek was kind of teaching it, in that thing that they brought back, Hell's writings and stuff.
And something,
rejected all of it, basically.
Just mentioning the Zybok character, that was one of the issues that they had with it. Also, if I understand it, part of the whole issue was in Shatner's original idea for the direction of the movie. He wanted to have everybody but Kirk get brainwashed by Zybok and go willingly. Everybody but Kirk.
Yeah.
Which brings to mind probably what I think really gets people about this film. How Shatner focused it actually all is. Now, I mean, he is the director, and I get that. But apparently, DeForest Kelley and Leonard Nimoy came out saying that, no, I can't imagine our character is getting that easily taken in by Zybok.
Yeah.
Especially Nimoy, since Nimoy directed the last movie, and he had a vision for Spock by then that he was very happy with. And he just didn't feel Spock would just, because he had a half-brother, he would just go willingly with him because of his situation.
Yeah. Which
later got kind of revised into Kirk orders him to shoot his brother before he knows it's his brother, and he doesn't do it.
Yeah.
That's about as insubordinate as that got.
Yeah.
So that got left in there, but there was a lot of script revisions. So the movie was a trouble production.
Yeah.
About as troubled as another Star Trek production, which is actually currently running, but we're not going to talk about that. It was apparently very troubled. But
I know. I guess it said a lot about how Roddenberry had problems with that movie too.
Yes, he didn't like the idea that.
But somebody had. I read somebody was saying that was sour grapes, because he had the same concept for Star Trek: The Motion Picture, but the studio rejected it.
Well, you mean the concept of encountering Christ in space and finding out that it was actually Lucifer?
No, encountering God in space. That's originally what Star Trek: The Motion Picture was going to be.
There was that whole idea, and like I said, I was using that reference that D. Kelly made on the Tom Snyder show.
Yeah. So saying that he got mad because Shatner got approval to go ahead and do his version of it, and here we go again with this comparison between. Remember, I was telling you how people were saying that Star Trek 4 and Star Trek 1 are like almost the same film, just they switched a few things around to make it different.
Exactly.
Now they were saying it again for Star Trek 5, that Star Trek 5 was another play from Star Trek: The Motion Picture. Here we go again doing the same thing, but I don't see that.
It's an early script of the motion picture we don't really know much about. So. Yeah,
but it's like, I didn't see it that way. Star Trek 5 didn't seem anything like Star Trek: The Motion Picture.
No, it didn't. And the thing about the motion picture, if anything, was more the Changeling.
Yeah.
The TOS episode, a machine life form hybrid looking for its.
Yeah, it wasn't the crew looking for God. It was the machine trying to find its creator. It was a whole different idea. It was,
more like searching for a parent than it was a God figure.
Yeah.
But another thing about it, they were mentioning that there were a lot of films around that time that were dealing with evangelism, and some people felt Shatner's idea for being for dealing with evangelism was not very original. But okay, is it okay if I give a positive thing about this movie? I mean, looking at it here, in terms of that part of the plot line, I think it handled that situation relatively well under the circumstances, and it was very in keeping with what Gene would have wanted. Originally, there were distinct references to God and hell and that kind of thing in it, and Gene wouldn't have wanted that, so they did it the way they did it, kind of a more ambiguous situation. But I'll get into that a little more. Would it be easier if we just discuss the messy part of it first, because you get that out of the way?
Yeah, well, there's a lot there.
Okay, in movie. You want to go first? You want me to go first here, because there's a lot messy to deal with.
Well, I guess one of the things is they had to deal with a writer's strike.
Right, the writer's strike that affected Next Generation too, if I remember.
You know, I think it was their second season, I think, and that kind of.
Yep, the second season they had some episode delays and.
Yeah. So they had that, and then they wanted to get Harv Bennett to work this thing out, but something happened after Star Trek IV between Leonard Nimoy and Harv Bennett, and there was a falling out between the two of them, and he just kind of said, "To hell with it, I'm not coming back to Star Trek." And then Shatner went over there and talked to him, and kind of got him back into the franchise. And Harv looked at his original script idea and thought it was boring, or it's not going to work, and the ending of the story was going to be a disappointment to the audience, because you can't, no one's ever going to all agree on what God is, or how it's going to be when we find him. So I mean, he was thinking that was the wrong thing to go with that. So him and the two of them kind of worked together to make revisions with that. But all through it, even every revision he made, there was always a problem, and they kept coming back to the problem of what are we doing with this character? What's like the crew turning on him, and then of course Shatner wanted his ideas to go into the movie, but they were thinking, well, now it's conflicting with this, and it was like there was always these problems coming up in his script all the time.
In movie, I mean that's part of in movie. I'm wondering if that affected some of the what headed the movie, and I think the one thing we just should go right into is the pretty obvious focus on Shatner in this movie. I mean, yeah, he's the director, but the first thing we see is an establishing scene with Zybok on this planet of galactic peace, which I'll get into a little bit later about the Nimbus 3 situation, because there were some things in there that I think could have been written in a little bit differently, but anyway, we'll get into that. Yeah. Note, I had the Star Trek 4 audio tape.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember those audio tapes. And the thing about that audio tape is that it was narrated by George Takei. He did a lot of them.
Yeah, I know it. Yeah, he did. It's funny that they made those tapes for people, who are blind, to be able to, get these stories. But I think there was more people buying them because, they had the actors themselves reading these things over. Yeah,
I don't think that was made for the blind. I think it was made for Star Trek fans, the ones they made for that.
Well, I think that was the original idea for making audio stories.
Well, probably the original was for blind people, yes. But like I said, I just think they could have done generic narrators for that. But these Star Trek things, they were specifically made for fans. They had sometimes two different voice actors from the show doing them.
It's almost like, it's like one of those books, you turn the page and you hear the community. I mean, it was almost like,
like one of those kids' books where you get a tape and they tell you if you hear a sound, turn the page.
Yeah. I mean, it was almost like a children's book, and we're going into the college level now, where we
they're literally narrated books. And now there are websites you can get these things like, I can't remember the name of it. I think it's audible.com has them.
Yeah. I mean, I still got mine. I mean, it's all on cassette, but I mean, I still have mine.
Yeah, they had an anthology of CDs too.
They do, yeah.
Some of the Simon and Schuster books.
Yeah.
Pocket books. Anyway, so yeah, and of course there was another Star Trek called Final Frontier, which was a prequel about Robert April that came out. And I get that first because I thought it was for the new movie, but it wasn't. It was for a book called Final Frontier. Both very good, by the way, but that's Final Frontier. Star Trek V was the Final Frontier. There's the big difference, right?
The makes the difference.
The word makes it all a different movie.
It's just like when I had Predator, now it's the Predator, so they had to separate the two.
Just one little word, But anyway, so in Star Trek V, the first obvious thing, I just wanted to mention this. Zybok encounters a character that I don't believe it's named in the movie, but he's played by Rex Holman.
Is that bald-headed?
Yeah, I believe he was also that Captain Rix, wasn't he?
Was he?
Next Generation.
I know he was in an original episode of TOS. I think he in that episode where they like the Old West or something. It was.
Yeah, Rex Holman. They always have him playing aliens. Or
I think he was Wyatt Earp. I think, or no, yeah, I think that's what he.
Wyatt or Morgan Earp.
Morgan, one of the Earps that
But there was one Earp that was kind of threatening. I think there was Wyatt Earp, and Morgan just sat there and looked menacing.
Yeah.
I think it was probably Morgan.
Yeah.
Rex Holman. Yeah, but
he was in that episode.
So he was in this, and Zybok basically what he does is he apparently makes people relive trauma, and then somehow takes it away. Which
that was always
really explained.
it's really vague how you make somebody relive a trauma
Well,
and all of a sudden they find
you
peace
know,
after. I mean,
with Cybok, just the way he acted and the way he expressed himself, and I mean, it's obvious to me he was obviously the stereotypical televangelist.
yeah.
That's basically what he was, just like a faith healer. You know,
But when you think of a televangelist, you think of somebody that's loud and they're
but
really.
Cybok had that somewhat Vulcan wisdom. But still, if you transpose him with Jimmy Swaggart, he'd still share your pain. You know, that was the vibe.
Yeah, I mean, he wasn't like screaming in front of like 100 and something.
No, he was just being very theatrical and melodramatic. Share your pain with me, and all this stuff. But then it's like, release it with me, release it, all this stuff. But anyway, so apparently when he does that, people get on their knees to him and want to worship him. I guess that's what happens. They will do anything he says.
Yeah.
Anything. Even the Enterprise crew will do anything he says if they do this.
It's just always seemed a bit far-fetched, like he would just reach down and grab one event in their life that was bad, and that all of a sudden changed their loyalty.
So like I said, I think the writer's strike might have benefited from that. And I'm going to use that Bill Cosby phrase. Yes, I'm going to use a Bill Cosby phrase, Internet. Thank you very much. I'm not afraid.
Yeah.
I still spoke Michael Jackson's name in public in the 90s. Thank you very much. Anyway, so it's that quote we always talk about with Star Trek V. It's taking a wonderful steak and serving it in a trash can lid. That's basically what ended up happening.
Yeah, that's true.
And, of course, when I was 9 years old seeing it, I was paying attention to the steak and not the trash can lid.
Yeah.
But we'll get into perceptions a little bit later. But anyway, the point is that, I just have a lot to say about this, so I'll give you some chance to talk. But one of the scenes that I found it, I don't want to hog this. We're team here. But the thing about, another scene in that is that, this is the 24th century here, 3rd century, I should say. And when that Rex Holman character, I think he had a name in the novel, but I don't remember what it was. He was just some generic character.
Yeah.
He looked at Cybok and said, "You're a Vulcan." And I found that a little strange because couldn't he presume he was Romulan?
Yeah.
I mean, even though, because Nimbus 3 is supposed to be the planet of galactic peace where it's kind of a neutral planet. So why did he just presume he was a Vulcan because he had pointed ears?
Yeah.
I just found that weird, but that's a little thing.
Well, maybe typically there was only like one Romulan because it was the ambassador, and there was no other Vulcans.
And the only thing where I really, I guess, initially noticed the budget, them cost cutting a little bit, was the fact they reused the motion picture theme song for the 3rd time on this movie.
Or actually, this was to be the 2nd time they brought Jerry Goldsmith back for the.
Well, yeah, but see, they used it with Next Generation too. So
but who was that? Was another guy that was playing that? He was using Jerry Goldsmith's theme song.
Well, I know they played it. Somebody different played it on Next Generation, but I'm just saying they used that same theme music again.
Yeah.
So it's like they didn't have the time to redo a brand new theme for it.
Well, it didn't matter to me because I prefer that song over all the music they were playing before that.
Well, I'm thinking Star Trek V with that same little bell song. That
yeah, I know it. I mean, yeah. And something. The funny thing is that Jerry Goldsmith thought it would be better not to put music in the funny scenes in Star Trek V because he thought it would take away from the drama. And I was thinking, well, why the hell didn't the other guy from the last movie think the same damn thing?
Well,
it's like,
I'm going to do a little music transition in this because I wish we had effects because this would be funnier, but we can just mime it here because I could actually transpose music in this movie from other Star Trek movies and put it in this. But anyway, so then we get to the what did you call it? The Shatner ego trip thing we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, it was just saturated.
Him on the mountain and him climbing the mountain. It was El Capitan, and then Spock on the little rocket ski boots that come up. I think they're ski boots, right?
The whole thing about that whole beginning of him climbing the mountain and then McCoy getting pissed at him and coming after him, it just seemed to me like what's the matter with Kirk? Is he feeling suicidal or something? I mean, because you never saw him being that. That kind of cavalier about his life before that. It was kind of a shocker that he is climbing the side of a friggin' mountain free-handed. Okay. And it just
figured with seeing Star Trek 2, this is a guy who was in his 50s by then, and he was kind of going through a midlife crisis. And I got to go do stuff that 20-year-olds would do. I just got to go climb these mountains freehand and all this nonsense. But I was kind of.
It just seemed a bit out of character.
And I was like, come on, we can spend this movie watching him climb mountains.
Yeah.
That was what I wondered. This was going to be Star Trek V, the final frontier is the top of the mountain. He's going to get up there and just be, I'm up here, end of the movie,
Yeah.
I thought that's going to be him climbing a mountain the whole movie, but no. Spock's up in those little ski boots.
Yeah.
And here's a weird thing. I live in Maine, but I had never seen those kind of ski boots before. It's weird, but I didn't know. I know there's ski boots now, but I just thought there was some special prop design for the movie. But there were ski boots, I think.
Yeah.
They just had little rocket stuff coming out of the bottom.
Yeah,
but okay, Kirk falls off the mountain. Spock chases him, and I don't know. I was kind of waiting for the movie to start at that point because I kind of felt, are we dealing with just a campfire? A campsite drama with Kirk and them.
Well, unfortunately, that was the best part of the film. Really, was when they were at the campfire because you knew what you were expected to get out of that.
Right, and that's where at least we had some character development because we had some Spock humor, which I actually enjoyed, including the infamous marshmallow scene, which actually developed into a little strange piece of merchandise for this movie, which I believe you had.
Yeah, from Kraft.
Some little thing. It was like a little object that
it almost looked like a lightsaber, and you stuff the things in there and you have this lever that you pull it out, you just push the lever up and the things come out. It's just a dispenser is all.
Yeah, I didn't know if that device was like the 23rd century equivalent of a bread maker or what, or a replicator or something. It didn't look like it would form any.
They make a device just to replicate marshmallows.
Maybe it was a 24th century candy machine or something.
Maybe, I don't know.
I don't know. It was a weird device. I didn't know. I mean,
at first I thought he was pulling out a universal translator.
Yeah, because it looked kind of like that old universal translator they had in TOS.
And then you hear, and then it comes out.
Maybe he retconned it. Maybe he retconned that to make marshmallows or something. I would take this circuit out here and put this in there, and it makes marshmallows now. Yeah. I don't know.
I like how McCoy just let him keep calling it marshmallow, just to, you don't even try to correct him.
He was just kind of letting Spock be, because Spock was still kind of coming back to life still in that movie.
Yeah.
He still had that kind of ditziness where he didn't quite know what things were. And
I mean, it was supposed to be like not too long after the fourth movie that we meet up with him again. So
yes, and we can see that on the Bridge of the Enterprise. We'll get to that a little bit later.
Yeah.
But so yeah, the Enterprise, in an infamous line that we actually joked about, Scotty was saying, I think this new ship is put together by monkeys. And you made a joke that, we were talking about that they made this new Enterprise A in the French Cameroons with the chimps or something. Because, we'll get into why that was a little bit later, but the ship is messed up. And I wanted to mention something. If you look at one of the engineers of the communication station, it's the scene where Uhura brings Scotty a bag of chips, I think. It's like a little bag of something.
Yeah, something.
I thought it was a bag of chips or something. But anyway.
I thought it looked like military rations, like you just add water or something like that.
Yeah, he's eating out of it like maybe it was a microwavable thing. Or maybe they just put it into a thing and made it whatever. But anyway, there's this guy in the corner and he's using that thing. I don't know what it's called. It looks kind of like that and these little spikes that kind of stick inward.
Mm-hmm.
Scotty used it in TOS.
Oh, I think I know what you're talking about. Yeah,
what that thing is. It's I should normally start
for a lot of different things.
Yeah, it's just kind of a universal tool you always saw Scotty having down there.
Yeah,
and one of the guys had that in that movie, and I'm surprised they still had old TOS stuff on this, like 30 years later on this bridge. And it was an old TOS prop. Maybe that was part of the budget thing.
Oh yeah, I mean, because they had to go back and refilm parts of the movie, because Paramount said you got to cut this out, you got to cut that out, the effect shot. So he had to go back and refilm some things with a lesser budget.
If you have Star Trek V on something, DVD, Blu-ray, whatever, watch that scene where they're on the bridge and getting the red alert about Nimbus 3, and you'll see that guy by the communications using that old TOS tool, just holding it in the air.
Yeah.
That tool never seemed to have any decisive use. It was just like...
Yeah.
I know, but it's amazing that in that time period, they still using old TOS stuff.
Yeah, well, maybe a hammer is always going to be a hammer, or something.
I guess so, but I mean, on TNG, you don't see them pull out TOS phasers.
Oh no.
Whatever.
Yeah, to cut into a wall, you don't think them pull out a phaser to cut into a wall like they did in your.
Yeah, it's weird though. Like I said, everything looks so different. They got these old TOS tools still hanging around, but
yeah.
But anyway, the thing is that I guess maybe it was budget concerns. So then Admiral Harv Bennett showed up. I believe he had a name in the book, but he wasn't. I think they called him Bob, didn't they?
Yeah.
Did he call him Bob something?
Something, yeah.
I think he said Bob. His name Admiral Bob.
Yeah. I just figure that, when Kirk was still an admiral, the two of them probably knew each other or something.
We'll call him Admiral Bob.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm sure he had a name. In the book, he had some other name, but I just call him Admiral Bob on this occasion, because he mentioned his name was Bob, so
Yeah.
I think he said Bob.
But here's the thing about the premise of this at the start here. I mean, when he's talking to the admiral and he tells him,
I think I know where you're going, but go there.
yeah, and he's like saying, we need an experienced crew to go out there to deal with this problem. And I'm thinking, well, wait a minute.
Well, there's a problem.
No amount of experience in the world is going to make the Enterprise A that it's already wrecked.
Well, exactly. And
better. You with a skeleton crew, he thinks experience alone is going to solve this
sets
problem.
it up all wrong. Kirk says the Enterprise is a disaster, which you can see. The ship is half broken. They're still refitting parts of it. It still looks like a mixture between the Star Trek V, or they do in the next movie.
Yeah.
What happens is that he says the Enterprise you must have other ships.
Yeah.
So Admiral Bob says to him, "We have other ships, but no experienced commanders. We need Jim Kirk. We're ordering the Enterprise to Nimbus 3. Now, here's my thing. Why didn't they just have Kirk assigned to a new ship?
Yeah.
Instead of just sending him with this messed up wreck that doesn't work."
Yeah, if he's the experienced one and his crew, then just send them on the
Excelsior right there.
Yeah, really.
I mean, that's fine.
And as we found out in the movie, obviously it didn't work because they ended up getting hijacked and brought all the way to that crazy planet there that was a desert.
Right, and the Admiral Bob, if you think about it, he could have just said, "Okay, your Enterprise is wrecked. We'll just put you on some 100-year-old NX-01 and have you go on there."
I mean, even that would have been
five.
Even the old NX-01 would have been in better shape than the Enterprise A at that point.
Yeah. Or we'll give you some old previous Connie. Welcome to the past. Or whatever. Or we'll give you the Prime Discovery. Whatever. Some other ship.
Yeah, the other one mothballed in the back there somewhere.
Yeah, so we'll give you that or whatever. But anyway, so they send him on this Enterprise put together by monkeys.
Yeah.
And so they go to this planet, Nimbus 3. Okay, so Nimbus 3 is a planet that was put together by the Romulan and Klingon empires. Now, according to the book, it is a fertile planet that was situated in the neutral zone. And the Federation, instead of colonizing it with the best and brightest, conned settlers into coming. Which I found kind of strange. Why would the Federation con a bunch of miscreants to come to a new planet?
Yeah.
Why wouldn't they just send their best and their brightest to develop this planet together?
Yeah.
It seems like they kind of goofed that one right up.
And of course, in the way the planet looked, I mean, it's like, what chance does anybody have to really succeed at colonizing it?
This is not canon because I don't know. Is things from the book versions of the movies considered canon, or is that?
I would think the books would have to be, because if they made a movie out of it, it's
probably based on the script. Right?
Yeah. So,
according to the book, Nimbus 3 was a fertile planet when they first colonized it. There's a guy talking on a screen, the guy with those big buns.
Yep.
That salesman guy. If you look behind him, you can see there's trees. So Nimbus 3 once had trees.
Okay.
But according to the book, the settlers they conned into coming there apparently acted like we would. Not you and I, but like people in our time would.
Yeah.
They decimated the forests, put landmines and everything, and farmed with chemical toxins that were outlawed elsewhere in the galaxy. And within 30 years, they turned Nimbus 3 into a desert. So they basically polluted the planet and wrecked it.
So much for the idea that humanity kind of was enlightened after World War III.
Well, like I said, these were kind of low-class people who were settled there.
Yeah, they couldn't have been all humans. I mean,
but what I'm wondering about that, though, is that was this Planet of Galactic Peace just a smokescreen for a penal colony? I mean, that's what it seemed like to me. But the movie was kind of sketchy about what that Nimbus 3 was anyway.
Yeah, I mean, why? I mean, after like you said, after what happened in the book, I mean, why were they still sending ambassadors there? The Klingons had an ambassador kind of stationed there, just drinking himself to death, basically.
Oh, speaking of the ambassadors, the only ambassador that actually made any logical sense was the Romulan one. We get there, we find the human ambassador is a drunk who's smoking. We find there is a Klingon there who is a barfly, basically Norm from Cheers in a Klingon suit.
Yeah.
And, it's like, they said these ambassadors?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Hardly the Federation.
And here's the funny part of that is that Klingon, if he's such a disgraced person that, they send him on this planet to just wither away and die, then how come he would still have any authority over, the Klingon captain and the bird of prey? I mean,
here's the thing about that. They established General Cord was his name, I believe.
Yeah, Cord, yeah.
That he was, his teachings were required reading at the Academy at one point. So apparently he was a significant Klingon warrior. He might have been an Axanar, but apparently he really let himself go.
Yeah, something happened where he just got himself shipped to that wreck of a planet.
And that David Warner character, what was his St. John something?
Yeah, I can't.
Talbot. Yeah. What was he like? The Breaking Bad version of Star Trek or something?
Yeah, I mean,
the town drunk of Starfleet.
It seems like only the rejects get sent there.
And then this Romulan comes there, and she seems okay, and there are these two barflies sitting there.
Yeah.
I'm thinking to myself, geez. I mean, she's probably thinking, boy, you really let yourself go down here, didn't you?
Yeah, she's like the one that's trying to bring in the fresh energy. Let's do something with this planet.
Right, and she's like, a new energy was born, and he's sitting there like, ugh.
Yeah, they're like, yeah, waste your time. We already tried. It ain't gonna work.
Of course, this Talbot character is like, for a human at that time, very cynical. He's like, oh, we conned settlers into coming here. We forbade weapons. They fashioned their own. Nothing you can do with this place. I'm just going to drink my life away.
Yeah.
So she's like, oh, I've arrived just in time. So then Cybok arrives in the middle of an oriented situation. And now we've established.
Yeah, just when they think there's something's going to get started,
these are the only two characters.
A bunch of terrorists show up.
Right, these are the only characters we can see obviously have a problem.
Yeah.
So if Cybok is trying to get to their pain's pretty obvious. They both are just dispirited drunks.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, they're easy marks, these two guys.
Yeah.
Now with her, I don't know what her situation is. What was her name? Dar. The only Romulan who had a first name. Her name was Caitlin Dar. So she had two names. So I guess Romulans have two names.
And what a human first name.
Well, it might have been a different Caitlin.
Maybe it's spelled different.
Yeah, they can invert that in a movie. They invert human names to sound different all the time.
Yeah.
Like anyway, like it's Chris with a Y, not an I.
Yeah.
Anyway, so the thing is that so Cybok comes in and he brings him into the Galactic Army of Light. Now that I think about it, was that a little internal shade? Galactic Army of Light, industrial light and magic. Gotta wonder.
Maybe.
I gotta wonder if that was a little shade the writers put in there. Like, we'll just put that light in
just like
there.
Shaka Ree was a play on Sean Connery.
Maybe it was.
Yeah.
Like, they should have just called it, our destination is Sean Connery. That's Eden. Is Sean Connery.
Yeah.
Maybe it is, because Shaka Ree could be a...
So he's forever linked to Star Trek, whether the hell he was on it or not.
Yeah, see, I didn't know until you told me he was going to be in that movie, but it kind of makes sense, because you could kind of see him being the way he is, with his head on high.
Yeah.
Could have easily been a Cybok character.
Yeah.
Although, in the end of the day, basically, Cybok played a character who was extraordinarily vain. And we established that in the end of the movie, but, it was basically all about him getting what he wanted and having his quest. It wasn't really about his followers. He was like, oh, you're on my quest. You're going to see things my way because you know I'm right. That was basically his whole thing.
Yeah.
So, okay, now more craziness ensues.
I like the idea that Shatner was trying to teach Nimoy how to ride on a horse, but Nimoy already knew how to ride bareback on a horse.
Okay. So the Nimbus 3 fight. Okay.
And then that whole scene with the horse standing out in the moonlight there dancing.
With the feather dance,
yes. That's a little bit eerie to me. It's like, this woman is old enough to be my grandmother, and it's like...
Yeah, well... I can go
And I
back.
was like, I don't want to really see too much of this.
When I went to the 91 convention,
Yeah.
Michelle was there in
Yeah.
Bangor. And my mother, all the Star Trek fans were asking these big, techy questions that Star Trek fans love to ask.
Yeah.
My mother gets up and says, Miss Nichols, in that scene in Star Trek 5, were you actually naked or not? So I'm like, okay. And she answers us.
Yeah.
Just for the record, the answer was an absolute resounding yes. And she was quite proud of it. You know, I mean, for a woman in her 50s to be up there, that's pretty liberating, I guess. But, you know, I mean...
For people in her generation, yeah. But, you know, the younger generations are going to this movie. They grew up watching her as a young woman. And, you know, and then we see her now, and it's like...
Of course, it's all dark. You can't see anything that would be offensive.
You know, it's just... Yeah, I know. I was like, you know, how far is Shatner going to take this? You know, it's like, you know...
Well, you know, the sad thing about that, though, is that was not her voice. That was actually a song done by a Japanese group called Hiroshima. I guess it was felt that Michelle's voice was not quite what it was supposed to be. Now, here's the weird thing. In this version of the comic book, they have her singing a reprise of her Charlie X song.
Okay.
Not the one about his devil ears and devil eyes will rip the heart from you.
Yeah.
And the settlers in this book are like, she's talking about Zybok! Which I found really hilarious. Because, like, they're that obsessed that if they hear references to Vulcan ears, they think it was all about their Lord and Master Zybok.
Yeah, but...
In the book, they're all totally into him. But in the movie, she's singing some other song. It's by that other group, so...
Yeah.
But the whole thing is these guys apparently have never seen a woman before. That's, you know...
Yeah.
If you listen to the dialogue, you hear them say, oh, she naked? She naked? It's like, okay, so you've never seen a woman, and you've never seen a woman naked before.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess these guys have been away from a world for a while. So of course, she's basically Matahari up there, you know.
Yeah.
Captive audience. So anyway, so then there's that horse scene. There was a scene in there, I'm not sure. I don't know if it was true, but I thought there was one scene where Spock was actually trying to talk to a horse. It was a scene where the horse was going, and you see Spock, like, I thought he was braying like a horse in that scene for years, but I was never sure.
You talking about when he nerve pinched that horse or something like that?
Well, yeah, I thought he was braying at the horse somehow, but maybe I was transposing it with Plato's Stepchildren. I don't
okay.
I always thought he was braying at the horse. But I do know one thing. We see a live-action Cation for the first time, who I guess is some sort of exotic dancer who is doing some kind of dance on a pool table covered in water or beer or something. Yeah,
something.
I don't know why it's covered with water.
It wasn't that like a pool table? It had like little balls on it. Was floating.
Yeah, but it had water. I don't know if the game was meant to have water, but it was all covered with water.
Yeah, I mean,
or beer or something.
Yeah, something like that. It was something.
Maybe it was a swimming pool and a pool table.
Yeah.
I don't know what.
I mean, in the earlier scene when they were showing it, when they first showed the inside of the bar, it looked like they were playing pool on a water table or something. I mean,
maybe it was the game. I don't know. It just was very undefined. So anyway, Kirk gets in there and he thinks the whole bar is empty, but she comes out and jumps on him.
Yeah.
And as we discussed, he basically proceeds to throw her about 20, 30 feet across the room into that pool thing.
Yeah.
As if he's Lee Majors.
Yeah. Apparently he's got a bionic arm there or something like that. You know, I mean.
So apparently Kirk suddenly has Vulcan powers where he can just throw people halfway across the room. So
I mean, even my mother, because she went with me to watch that, and when he did that, my mother goes, she started laughing. It was so unbelievable because they show him like way, way away, and the Catwoman just flying over to the other side of the bar. And I'm like, oh, come on, you know.
An explanation. Maybe Kirk was getting DNA from Vulcan stem cells.
He's getting something.
It
wasn't just Viagra.
Unless Cajuns weigh like 10 pounds, which I doubt. So
yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean,
that was craziness. So anyway, they get into this. So they get back to the ship. Spock will not shoot his brother, who they do not know is his brother, till they get into this escape-proof brig in some weird part of the ship. And I believe, if I recall, the brig is actually in the secondary hull.
Well, there was a scene before that where, okay, now we how many followers of Cybok was with him when they went and took that little town there? I mean, how many would you say he had with him?
Oh, what was that name? Paradise City was the name of it.
Yeah, that Paradise City. I mean, how many
like
people?
a little mall or whatever it was.
Yeah, I mean, he had a small army there. Okay.
Yeah, the Galactic Army of Light, like
Yeah.
maybe 15 people.
Yeah, at least. I mean, he had to have quite a few to take that town. But here's the thing: they had just this one shuttlecraft, and he managed to cram just what? There was only like maybe a handful in the shuttle. Now, I know he showed up to that town with more people than that.
Right. There's all these other people there.
Yeah, there was only maybe like 6, 7 people in the
So,
shuttlecraft.
like I said, he wasn't cramming all the people into the shuttlecraft. So,
even
when
with
they
a
sent
skeleton
down shuttles and
crew-
just had them come up.
Even with a skeleton crew on the Enterprise, they still could have got the ship back. From
So what I'm
Cybok.
wondering is, do you just have them send down other shuttles to bring his followers up with him?
He didn't have the time. Remember, they narrowly escaped the photon torpedo from the
They
Klingon
couldn't
ship.
beam up. So I guess we've got a bit of a plot problem here.
Yeah, the transporter wasn't working. So,
So like I said, these are writing holes that just never quite got finished.
yeah.
But,
I spotted that right off the bat, and Athena was like, wait a minute. I mean, see, this guy had a whole bunch of people. They all fit in the shuttle. I mean, what, they got a luggage rack somewhere that we don't know about or something?
So again, we're skipping over some of the significant scenes of the movie, but I'm just discussing the weirdness right off. But anyway, another bit of weirdness, and I'm going to get into a little soundtrack thing with this, is when they get out of the brig, they're trying to get, I guess, to tell Starfleet or whatever. So they've got to go through the turbo shaft, which is empty, and they were walking up, and Spock decides to go up with his levitation boots, but he has to turn on his rockets because they're way down. So then they go up this turbo shaft where the decks are all labeled all off kilter.
Yeah.
And they keep going up and down too, apparently, because you see deck 52 twice.
Yeah.
And they have a deck 78 on the ship now.
Yeah, 78.
So it's like we talk about this. Either the primary hull of the Enterprise is suddenly about this, the signature is like that thick, or either that, or the ship was put together in the French camera rooms by.
It would make this Enterprise A is bigger than the Galaxy class Enterprise, way bigger, because it'd be like a Star Destroyer.
Like I said, that scene where they're going up and down the turbo shaft didn't have any music, but if I were to put music into it, it would be that thing from Star Trek 4, which was it didn't seem to be that silly music in that, because it seemed ridiculous.
And Goldsmith would not do that. He said that would have just made the scene more ridiculous if he'd have added any music.
Well, what could you do to make it more ridiculous? Because you're sitting there looking at this like, okay, how big is this thing? Or these decks like that big, like little mouse decks or something.
Yeah.
Are they for the ship rats or something?
Wasn't it weird that there happened to be no turbo cars anywhere in that when they were?
Yeah, they just didn't have one. It's like they hadn't completed the ship, so I figured they hadn't put one in yet or whatever.
Yeah, they were all empty.
Oh, I know we're getting a little ahead of ourselves. Maybe they didn't bring it in until Tuesday.
Yeah.
And the movie was on a Sunday.
Yeah.
So maybe that's the whole thing. Sorry, everything's on Tuesday in that world.
Yeah.
Tuesday's delivery day. So anyway, that's a fault. It was happening on a Sunday, so it wasn't until Tuesday they didn't get the turbo left in. So anyway, they got the turbo shaft. And let's see.
Getting out of that prison was weird because I mean here you had Shatner and the
the jailbreak where this escape proof thing. Spock, unless he was joking, could not get out of it, and he's a superhuman Vulcan.
Yeah.
Yet Scotty had a charge powerful to blow a hole in the side of it.
Yeah.
And
they were standing right in front of it. They were standing right in front of it when the damn wall blew out in front. I mean, it's like, well, Jesus, you don't even give them any warning to.
If it tried to blow a hole through it, I mean, Spock's the guy who would take one of those TOS monitors and just make it into aluminum foil. Why does Spock just punch it and not make it all bling and then just?
Yeah, I mean, it looked like drywall came out. Looked like a piece of drywall.
Boom, I mean, you can't tell me if that brig was that escape proof, Scotty could have found a charge big enough to blow that thing open.
Yeah. I mean, or you found some other tool to just cut them out of there without blowing something up. I mean,
maybe he could take that phaser and just cut that thing out like he did in TOS,
really.
I'm going to cut the little wall out and hope for the best, but this is
he spent most of the movie crawling around in the bowels of the ship, in the Jeffries tubes and stuff like that, where he knocked his head out. Remember when
well, didn't you say that was in the preview where he goes, I know a ship like back of my hand, boink?
Yeah.
And he was like, oh no.
You know, when they put that little piece in the teasers and stuff, I knew right off this movie.
Yeah, that's not really teaser material. That's the lame joke, really.
I know it's like such old school kind of funny.
It's like silent movie era.
Yeah.
Kind of comedy.
Yeah.
Again, you could have put that Star Trek 4 music there. That silly silent movie soundtrack kind of
They
thing.
They could have put like a Three Stooges sound effect in there, like when they're beating each other over the head. Ding 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 ding. They could have done that. To make it.
Someone else like that. It didn't seem like it needed a Larry Curly Moe or Shemp sound.
Yeah.
Instead
you got Kirk, Spock, and McCoy. They could have been the three there slapping each other or something.
Yeah. Well, this goes into another element of Shatner. We talked about this. This was after Shatner had gone on Saturday Night Live and basically made every Star Trek fan look like an ass by telling him to get a life.
Yeah.
Which a lot of Star Trek fans did not find the least bit funny and felt that Shatner meant it. And, when he did the show, he obviously thought Star Trek was kind of a joke.
Yeah.
And treated it not 100% respectfully.
Yeah.
And like I said, at 9 years old, I wasn't really in tune with the in and outs and the little gossip in the middle. Maybe if I had, it would have been different. I just saw a Star Trek movie that was kind of interesting, but I noticed this stuff later, looking at it in that time.
Yeah.
I guess you have to be a little older and more aware of things to notice these things more, but
well, yeah.
At the time, I just saw a movie that was entertaining, but I didn't know what was going on behind the scenes.
Yeah.
How messy that movie actually was. And so, yeah, the prison escape, if the brig is escape proof, boy, that must have been a pretty explosive bolt Scotty had in there, because I mean, after all, Spock can just randomly reduce control panels on the ship to flat foil things.
Yeah. Make him feel like cardboard.
Right, so he just pound his way through that thing with his hand. So
it didn't look that thick, that piece of metal that he blew off the wall. It looked pretty thin. So I mean,
yeah, so like how escape proof was that brig? The metal breaks right off. It's like I don't want to bring the Next Generation to it, but remember that Next Generation, we've seen Data a million times barely be able to force the doors open on that ship.
Yeah.
And then when that Admiral Quinn shows Geordi out the doors.
Yeah, the doors just blow off like feathers on
a cardboard.
I mean, crazy. That's a wonder Geordi had a bone that wasn't broken in his back after that. It was like,
yeah, really, because Data could barely force those things open. And I mean, if the doors were like that, they should have just fallen right off the.
Yeah.
I was like foam or something. They're like foam doors. Like, oh, come on, yeah. Those doors would fly off like that. I mean, to be honest with you, it would have been way more dramatic if he just thrown out the door open rather than have those doors fall off.
Yeah, really.
That was TNG, but anyway.
Remember when Worf was trying to beat the door down in sickbay there when he turned into that.
Right, you saw it all kind of dented.
Yeah, he couldn't get through it.
If it had been gone by that, the doors would have just fallen on the floor. But like I said, Star Trek technology, they seem to change it for some weird dramatic purpose. It doesn't make any sense sometimes. Like Spock said, that bridge was escape proof. Yet Scotty just blew the straight thin-looking metal off.
Yeah, I mean, I was a bit disappointed though. Now that you mention it, that they used a lot of Star Trek Next Gen sets.
Yeah, well, that was a reality with the 5th and 6th movie. They were obviously using the transporter from the Next Generation, and the one thing I noticed too was the corridors were Next Gen. Yeah,
they didn't even try to hide it like they did in 6. I mean, they just grabbed it as it was, and they used it.
I mean, there was a scene where Zybok's followers were running down.
Yeah.
If I had my Star Trek blueprints correctly, I think it was around Deck 12, Section B of the Enterprise D.
Yeah.
Right about near where Holodeck 2 was.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's totally... I mean,
when remember that Sodbach was talking to the crew, and they showed one crewman walking out of the turbo lift? Well, you could see that they blue screen behind him because they took the turbo lift that we normally saw in Next Generation, and they just kind of went over it with a blue screen of a picture of a different interior of a turbo.
Yeah, and they kind of made it a little bit out of focus. You could barely notice it, but it was there.
Yeah.
I mean, but I mean, wouldn't it have been weird though if they had some person in the background wearing a TNG uniform or something just to make it extra special?
Oh God, that really. I mean, it
they could have really messed up on that one. So.
Yeah, I mean, I wish they didn't do that. I wish they'd have just fixed that up different somehow. But
I mean, I don't know why they just didn't remake the sets from the first movies. Budget, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, for this movie, it was always the budget. Budget was the problem because they, they were saying he was spending more than they spent on Star Trek 4.
Which is weird, though, because when you saw the end of Star Trek 4, it was a remake of the Star Trek 2 bridge.
Hmm.
A motion picture bridge, just whiter. I don't know why they just didn't use that for 5.
I know they went and redid a whole new set. I mean, I don't understand why they did that. You know,
And it was basically an early version of the 6th one.
Yeah.
Just kind of an early version. So, okay, as far as special effects are concerned, and, you know, this is one thing where I have a little bit of an issue myself with special effects. You know, I think I discussed with you with Twister syndrome. I was reading or watching a video where somebody was describing the effects of Twister. Now, this is a 20-year-old person talking, as being old and cheesy. Now, of course, you know, I remember when the big draw of that movie was the effects. So either they are cheesy and I'm aged out, or what I think is true, that effects don't always age well with time. You know? And I think with 5, to be honest with you, it wasn't that big an effects movie in the end of the day. The only real effect they had was the center of the galaxy.
Yeah.
Which, at the end of the day, more or less looked sort of like a liquid light with some blue screen. But it was basically on par with effects at the time. It wasn't that innovative. I wouldn't say it was below what that era could have done. It was just kind of on par with it. It wasn't anything innovative.
Yeah.
And maybe that was the thing about ILM. They always kind of did state of, like, the motion picture may look dated now, but at the time, that was pretty state of the art.
Yeah.
You know, at that time, in 79. Star Trek 2, although not really an effects movie per se, was still pretty state of the art for the time. The whales in Star Trek 4 being so convincing.
Yeah.
Again, and they still look convincing on Blu-ray, by the way. They did a really good job with those whales. The ones in Star Trek 5 just look exactly on par with their time. They don't look innovative. They look like they came from the late 80s.
Yeah.
Like exactly from the late 80s. It could have been Ghostbusters. It could have been...
Yeah.
They're very much of their time. So when I see it, I just think it's an 80s movie effect. I don't see them being ahead of their time. I just see them being of their time.
Yeah.
Not behind it, not ahead of it, just kind of with it.
Yeah.
And maybe that's what it is. Maybe people expect Star Trek to be innovative and always do these new things, and they didn't do new things. They just kind of stuck with what worked.
Well, that's why a lot of people noticed the difference in quality in that when ILM wasn't...
Right, they weren't innovating. They were just sticking to what worked.
Yeah.
So, no, I don't think the effects in Star Trek 5 are bad. I just think they're very of their time. They're not innovative.
Yeah.
They don't... I mean, nobody's going to say, oh, I was inspired by Star Trek 5 to do a whole new thing. You know, you're not going to... It's like, it's a very 1989-looking movie.
Yeah.
So in 89, I didn't have a problem with it, but, you know, if you're into that kind of thing, and I don't know about you, I'm not a person who judges a movie by dated effects per se.
Yeah.
Because I don't hate every movie that came out, because effects always kind of change.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, CGI 4 years ago is very different from CGI now. There's always a kind of a change.
Yeah.
So, but like I said, I don't think they were B-level. They were just kind of ordinary effects. So I just kind of dismissed them. I wasn't, you know, but then again, I'm not wowed by effects. But when they got to, now here's another confusing thing that I had. When everybody's looking at this Shakari, I guess it's supposed to be Shakari, it is a big blue star, I guess.
Something like that. It was a weird...
It looks like a picture of an inverse sun where the solar flares are blue.
I just thought it was like a planet that's surrounded by some kind of mystic energy or something.
Yeah, it reminded me of a sun.
Yeah.
Shot in inverse color. Like the sun is black and the solar flares are blue. That's what it looked like.
Yeah.
Like an inverse sun shot. But anyway, which is probably what it was. It was probably an inverse sun shot taken from Hubble or something.
Yeah.
But anyway, so they go and Cyborg's sitting like, you know, and then everybody's looking at it and they're like, oh, this is Eden. And you know, when I think of a planet in or when I think of, you know, the afterlife or whatever in creation mythology, I don't quite think of a planet with blue solar flares. So I'm just wondering why everybody is interpreting this place, unless they're all seeing a different thing.
Well, if you look at Captain Kirk's reaction when Cyborg says, I knew this was how it would, he kind of looked at him like, you know, are you kidding me? You know, this is...
Maybe they're all seeing what they want to see. Maybe that's something they couldn't do in the budget. Maybe they're all seeing something else.
I don't know, but it just seemed like, you know, maybe Cybot saw it, you know, it was like a vision that he got from this being that was there, and he knew it would look like that, but everybody else pictured something different because they thought Eden would look more like grass and trees and something, or something pretty, but instead we see a desert.
And that's one thing where the effects probably diminish from it. Wouldn't it have been interesting if they had this whole mechanic where everybody on the ship saw the planet a different way?
Yeah, that could have been easily done.
And when they went down there, because they kind of did that in Deep Space Nine. Remember when Cisco and Dax arrive?
Yep.
And he sees a rock face in this storm, and she sees the Garden of Eden.
Yeah.
They could have done the same thing on the Shakari. They could have had Zybok see. Well, it looks like when they get out of the shuttle on the planet, it looks basically like the Badlands.
Yeah.
And that would make sense for a Vulcan Eden to be a desert because they're a desert planet. But it would have been interesting to see Kirk get out and see this lush, fertile garden.
Yeah.
And, because that's what, or in Spock see whatever he was going to see, but have this, different vision of it. But they're all kind of seeing and experiencing the same vision.
Yeah.
Without any doubt. So everybody has the same thing. The only time we ever really see that is when they meet that alien or whatever, and he's showing the different god faces.
Yeah.
Until he comes this bearded Santa Claus-looking creature who he illustrates as being a Vulcan god. Which is odd. It's carried out in a strange way because you would figure that if this character is trying to masquerade as a god, it would be very different things to different people.
Yeah.
So maybe the effects just fail that because it just seemed discordant with the whole theme.
Yeah.
Well, at least a bit of shattered dialogue does cover a very obvious plot hole in the film the other characters don't seem to be noticing.
Yeah.
Zybok is seeking the ultimate knowledge, and he needs a starship to do it. And the alien is trying to get a starship. So Kirk asked the obvious question for the audience. What would God need with a starship?
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, you filled an obvious plot hole because from the beginning, you kind of are already set up to know that this is alien or whatever is not any kind of omnipotent God.
Yeah.
So why wouldn't he need a starship, if it was omnipotent?
Yeah, he created the universe. Or supposedly, he created the universe. Why would he need it?
So Kirk's whole thing is that I'm just going to, in my character, and very flippant, oh, excuse me, what would God need with a starship? He was very flippant about it.
Yeah.
It was a very big, dramatic scene where meeting who we think is God, and Kirk's like, oh, excuse me. It kind of fills a plot hole that the movie hadn't filled yet.
Yeah.
And then we find out he's no God. He's just kind of a malevolent entity who's just trying to hijack a starship to get off a planet he's apparently imprisoned on.
Yeah.
Then he turns into Zybok and fights with Zybok because it's a mirror of his vanity. Oh, yes, I forgot the Klingon subplot in this movie, which in a lot of ways didn't per se need to be there, I guess. Now that I think about it, it was just kind of an accessory plot line.
Yeah, I mean, they were trailing the Enterprise through the movie while everything was going on. They were just following them. Which is weird because, this getting to the center of the galaxy, it wouldn't have been like a, 2-hour trip. I mean, that had been taking years. It'd be like trying to leave the Delta Quadrant to go into the,
Well, like I said, I don't...
That's another plot hole.
How the hell talk about being in the galaxy, like when No Man Has Gone before, how close is the Federation to the center of the galaxy? They seem to be pretty close.
According to what I saw in the, they got these blueprints in the books and stuff like that. Earth and the solar system sits sort of on the edge of the galaxy. So I guess it's, on the, like on the rim almost. So it would be quick to get there, but to go to the center of the galaxy would take years of 60, 70 years, even at their highest warp.
Right, because the center of the galaxy spans all the galactic quadrants.
That's right, yeah.
So,
So that's another plot hole, and everybody picked up on that.
They have to cross the whole Alpha Quadrant in order to... Unless, for some reason, the galaxy is expanded to the point where it's closer to the...
Yeah, really.
I don't know how big the center of the... Maybe the center of the galaxy is smaller in the bigger in the Alpha Quadrant, smaller in the Delta. I haven't seen a galactic map of that time period, so they always say the galaxy is getting bigger, so I don't know. But leaving the galaxy in Star Trek seems more like a big theatrical word, but it doesn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah, why couldn't they just come up with a planet, or why did it have to be the center of the galaxy? Why could it just been some?
Sounds better in the movie, I guess.
That would have made the plot more sensible and how the ship got there so fast.
Or Kirk saying it couldn't be reached. They could have had it in some obscure nebula.
Yeah, really, something hidden from.
And then Kirk still sort of said, "Oh, this and this nebula can't be reached. No probe ever returned to it."
Yeah.
But I guess it doesn't sound as good as the center of the galaxy.
Yeah.
It's like, you know...
Grandiose idea.
Remember how in TOS they use the word quadrant extremely loosely?
Yeah.
Like, a sector and a quadrant were kind of the same thing.
Yeah.
Like, Argelius, for example, was the only spaceport in the quadrant.
Yeah. I mean, what are they saying?
Interpreting that later, it's the whole Alpha Quadrant has only one spaceport.
It's only got one.
It's Argelius. Okay.
Yeah.
So
obviously it means something else, you know.
There was only there was quadrant around like it was firewater. It was just everywhere.
I mean, even in Star Trek 6, you know, remember when they asked, when Sulu says, well, I'm now in Alpha Quadrant, you know, and I'm thinking, well, yeah, so everybody's in Alpha Quadrant, you know. So
well, except the Klingon Empire, which is in the Beta Quadrant.
Well, it's kind of. I mean, the parts of it are, but it's not all in the Beta Quadrant. I mean, there's parts in the Alpha Quadrant, but. So
and then didn't they establish in Voyager that the Excelsior had been in the Beta Quadrant beforehand?
Yeah, what was it? They were gaseous nebulas they were looking up or something like that.
Right, because the Beta Quadrant also was the Romulan Empire in it. So
yeah.
I'm guessing that Federation space is pretty close to the edge of the Beta Quadrant.
Well, see, the Alpha Quadrant kind of encompasses both the three major powers in the galaxy. You know, it pretty much covers that. And when you split the galaxy into four parts, I mean, you're basically putting, you know, parts of the Romulan Empire and parts of the Klingon Empire in conjunction with the Alpha Quadrant, you know. So
I don't know. That's a messy thing too.
I mean, the way he's delivered that line, it just didn't really.
That's throughout Star Trek, but in Star Trek V alone. So basically, after that, like you said, this Klingon general manager to convince this guy, who's basically the Klingon protagonist in this movie. Basically, he starts out by shooting the old wreckage of Pioneer 10.
Yeah.
But is bored. And decides that he wants to go out and just pursue Kirk because he has a bounty on his head.
Yeah.
So he's a vigilante. He's not associated with the Empire. So somehow this old drunken Klingon managed to use whatever little power he has to convince him to apologize to Kirk at the end.
You got the impression that Kirk was like, you know, if you can defeat Kirk, that would make you like the greatest Klingon warrior ever.
Yes, he's like a renegade going out there just to do some big Don Quixote routine trying to get Kirk.
Yeah.
Which actually, some of these comic books from around this time, there was actually one called The Trial of James T. Kirk, where they were extending on this renegade and terrorist of the Klingon thing. You know, the Klingon, he was like the poster boy for Kill Ugly Starfleet. You know, that was what Kirk had become, the representative of the worst, ugliest aspect of all Starfleet.
Yeah.
Yet, if you look at TOS, the Klingons seem to have a respect for Kirk in some way.
As a warrior, yeah.
Then in the new movies, all of a sudden, he's a renegade and a terrorist. Rather than a respected adversary. You know, because you can have an adversary and still respect them. You know, they're not renegades and terrorists per se.
No.
But all of a sudden, they turn Kirk into this total bad guy. So, whatever. But, so that happens at the end. Now, in the end, okay. Here's where we get to the better stuff. They do an interesting, I don't know if it was meant to, but they did kind of set up the events of Star Trek VI where somehow they had Spock as a temporary gunner on this bird of prey.
Yeah, he kind of negotiated himself into the bird of prey. They kind
of set up that there's a Klingon negotiation thing happening, and they kind of have the first little meeting on the ship, you know, where the two Nimbus 3 ambassadors are all of a sudden not so drunk and are acting and then they return back to Earth for shore leave, I guess. And for the first time in the series, where he's not being influenced by aliens, we get a chance to hear Spock sing. We'd heard it before, but it was Plato's Stepchildren. So I don't count that as Spock singing. I count that as him being forced to sing.
Yeah.
But, you know, and he's trying to sing campfire songs. And
there was a powerful scene in sort of like in the third act of the movie where, you know, McCoy, we learned about McCoy's
stuff that
father.
Was good.
Yeah, I mean that was pretty well done.
That was that part of the movie was actually good character development for Bones, I thought. Because, you know, I mean, I don't like to always relate too many things, but we all knew Bones indicated that he had somewhat of a tragic history. And I mean, he might have just been an irascible person, but you sense his irritability wasn't always just a natural way of being. There was something behind it. There's a talk about that he had a sister and a daughter and an ex-wife and stuff like that. But when you saw what happened to his father, we don't know how long that thing with his father ago it happened.
Yeah.
When his father died, that could have been before TOS. We don't know.
Probably, yeah.
Because he implied it had been quite a while. So, we get to see Bones dealing with the pain of his dad.
And, doing the euthanasia thing.
Right, and then finding a cure after.
That was, controversial at that time, because I think that was one of the topics.
Right, that was before Dr. Kevorkian came along, and when euthanasia was, in the late 80s, early 90s, was kind of a difficult subject matter. So the fact that they brought that out as a thing in Star Trek was...
I remember there was some fans up at the club there that we know that didn't really like that scene because of the fact that he used euthanasia to and I just like, well, hey, look, when you're in that situation, you don't know what you're going to do. A parent, a relative, it's easy to sit there on the sideline and say, don't do it, because you got nothing invested in that relationship.
Right, it's easy to moralize when you're not faced with it.
Yeah. So.
But yeah, so that was an interesting thing to bring up, and great Star Trek, actually.
Yeah.
So they had a good source for the pain that Bones would have to release from himself.
Yeah.
And of course, we got a very interesting scene. We actually got to see, for the first and only time, a Vulcan birth.
Yeah.
Apparently, Spock was born in a cave, which I don't know why I
remember I was telling you about how we always see Vulcans living in caves, and then on Enterprise they have.
Yeah, I know. Everything Vulcan like cave people or something.
They have a house. They got a house.
You think Vulcans, being those people, would have a house and they'd have hospitals and stuff, or they go put their baby in a cave and just have a cave. It's like,
yeah, I mean,
they're not Neanderthal or.
You don't see until Enterprise that they actually got homes, they got furniture, they got.
And then in Enterprise, what are they doing? They're putting them in caves again. So is there anything? So they keep putting Vulcans in caves all the time.
Yeah, I mean they're not barbarians. I mean,
right. Why are they giving Spock being born in a cave? It was interesting seeing him, even though he's born in a cave.
Even Klingons had houses.
Unless their hospitals are made of stone.
Yeah.
But I guess it was a cave. He was born in a cave, so.
Yeah.
Unless maybe. Now, I'm always wondering about Sarek and Amanda. Something tells me their marriage was a little controversial.
Yeah, for Vulcan.
I always have this little vision. Maybe hospitals on Vulcan wouldn't welcome them because they didn't want a human emotional pregnancy happening in their hospital. So maybe that drove Sarek and Amanda into a cave.
Like a replay of the birth, Jesus.
I don't know the religious thing, but instead of having a manger, they had a cave.
Yeah, sort of like that.
Maybe. I don't know, because they were kind of doing themes like that, but Spock wasn't swayed by his half-human side. It's like, I'm not the outcast boy you left behind. So that scene right there we just talked about with Bones and Spock being born, even though there's this weird thing about Vulcans in caves for some reason, but the fact of the matter is that would have been a good template to kind of move the rest of the movie on, kind of give some more credence into some of the character development. Like, maybe actually deal with, because obviously he's doing the same thing to everybody else. He's showing them visually what their pain is and then removing it somehow.
Yeah.
So why didn't we see that with Uhura, with Sulu, with anybody else?
Or even Kirk, because he was going to do that with Kirk, but no.
But Kirk was, of course, the guy directing, so he's like, no, I'm not going to be going through that. So,
yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, if it would have been another director, they probably would have wrote something in there for him, but, but I was like, he had that speech, if we take away our pain, we lose half of what we are, or something like that, and it's like, well, come on. I mean, these people were still loyal to him even after they kind of went back and revisited a trauma. It didn't make them any less loyal to him after they did what they did,
Well, I don't know. And that brings up another question, but let's just talk about the movie. When Kirk talked about needing his pain, that brought to mind an issue I have with some of the criticism of this movie, but we get finished with the movie, we'll do that. Another scene that I'm trying to find. I did like the campfire scene in the beginning because we found out that Kirk seemed to have a fear of dying alone. I think that's what was indicated because Bones was being snarky. Now, I had heard, I don't know if it's true around that time, that D. Kelly was kind of sick when that movie was being made.
Yeah, that's right. He had an operation, I think, for he had a problem with his colon or something like that, which later came back and
Right.
ultimately got him. But
Because when you see him in the beginning of the movie, he looks very frail. He doesn't seem very powerful. He seems like a guy who isn't well, even in the movie. He just seems like he's
yeah,
a little diminished.
yeah,
Shatner and Nimoy are still at the top of their game, but he seems a little bit,
yeah,
I don't know, something's a little missing there. With Star Trek 6, I know you said he was not well too, but he had a little more energy in that movie.
yeah.
When
Well, it was kind of like in between when the last flare up and then before the next one that got him.
yeah,
But
I think, was it 93 he passed?
yeah, it was somewhere right around there.
It was not long after 6 came out, but
Yeah,
during 5, I get the impression he was just getting over something, like just getting over it.
yeah,
He seemed like it looked like a guy who was getting over a flu or something, the way he was acting.
yeah. I mean, to be able to come back from that and just do a movie, which is stressful in itself, was quite a
And
big.
a particularly stressful movie indeed, because there were troubles making that one. So,
Yeah. So I mean, for him to come back and do that, he must have felt like he was well enough to be able to do it.
oh, yeah, well, I guess cheers to Forrest. I mean, he actually managed to be in there and actually managed to, even though, of course, it worked well because, Bones is snarky.
Yeah.
So, he's sitting there saying, oh, you really pissed me off, Jim. Life's too short to be doing it, which is typical Bones.
Yeah.
But he actually probably tells him, did it ever cross that macho mind of yours that you should have been killed when you fell off that mountain? And to be honest, he probably should have.
Yeah.
But like I said, Spock was going to jump down to the rescue, of course.
Yeah.
I mean, if Spock was just on a little board or something, he couldn't have done that, like a little hoverboard. But he had boots on, so he could fly up and down, I guess. He launched right after him, so.
Yeah.
Spock the Rocketeer, I guess.
Yeah, it was this thing with the rocket boots that was through the whole movie there practically. It was
yeah, it's like they were trying to show off some ski boots with new technology or something.
Yeah.
Although, and as a concept, it would have been kind of cool, because in the book they established those were used by tourists for sightseeing.
Oh, is that right in the book? That's what it.
Well, and also another movie that came out, I think, either that year or the year before, was Back to the Future 2, where they had hoverboards.
Oh, that's right.
So remember, there's a thing in the 80s where everything was flying. Cars were flying, people were flying.
Yeah.
So the whole idea that people were just going to zoom around in little rocket ships or something, little private rockets. I mean, it could have been worse. Spock could have had a little round pod thing. But, so they had ski boots that had little things coming out of them, but whatever. But, so there was that good scene about about Kirk dying alone, which was interesting. To be honest with you, this makes me weird. I feel the Cyborg character was underutilized.
I was just about to say that about the rest of the cast, because it seemed to me like the whole movie just centered around the three, basically.
Yeah, that triad. Bones
and everybody else. I mean, they had some parts to play in the movie, but they weren't like substantial, really. To like in Star Trek 4, everybody seemed to have something to do with that.
Yeah, Catherine Hicks there, Jillian was a major character in the film.
Yeah. And everybody had an important piece to the story to bring into the end, But
even that guy she worked with had a lot of character.
Yeah.
When she slapped. But I mean, so he had more character. With Zybog, basically, he was kind of emceeing the events in the movie. He was almost a foil to the whole event.
Yeah.
I mean, and remember, it was all about his vanity. So the movie should have been more or less about him. I
mean, his only part was just to get the people on the ship. And take the Enterprise. That was it. After that, it was, everybody else's story,
Right. And again, you almost had this impression like, okay, get the camera off Lawrence Luck and Bill and get it on me from Shatner, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
It kind of ended up being about his focus. And
Roddenberry didn't like the idea of Spock's father having another wife before Amanda, because
that could be disturbing too, because when did Spock say that was... He said he was a son of Sarek, but did he say the Vulcan priestess was a wife of Sarek?
Yeah.
Do Vulcans have the same concept of illegitimacy that we do?
Yeah.
Does Sarek have an affair? I mean, I don't know. I mean, there was some controversy there that you could kind of see, because Spock never mentioned Zybok before.
Yeah, never. Yeah.
So it's like... I mean, where was he during TOS? I mean,
there
So
was never
Cyborg had
any.
been just gallivanting around with this Vulcan galactic army of light looking for Shakari. I don't know how many followers he'd amassed, but there must have been something about that. So this character that obviously had this major background was kind of relegated to a foil. They didn't really, and that's why I say Cyborg was actually a character I wanted to see more of, because there was something there. There was motivation, and Roddenberry always said that was his one thing about sci-fi. He wanted to see more motivation in it. But he didn't give Cyborg the motivation he needed.
Yeah.
He was looking for God or the afterlife, but there's very little motivation behind it. Spock gives this thing about he believed the key to self-knowledge was emotion.
Yeah.
But beyond the faith healer stuff, he really didn't go that far into it, the character.
Yeah.
Having seen Lawrence Luckinbill in other movies, he could more than have pulled it off. I don't have an issue with that. It's more the writing, and that's the thing about this movie. At the end of the day, and here's my thing, and then maybe this is personal, it is far from the worst Star Trek movie I've seen, but it's far from the best either.
Yeah.
That's the best way I put it. And it's not that they had plot holes that were central to the film they didn't really work with.
Yeah.
They had Cybok, they had this mission, and it ended up being more about that human triad there, Spock, Kirk, and Bones.
Yeah.
Which we'd seen a lot. So,
and then we get kind of introduced to some kind of a relationship that was going on between Scotty and Uhura.
Yes, that, which to me came out of the blue because I never really saw that coming.
Yeah, none of us did. I don't think anybody.
Unless that happened between 4 and 5, because
it would have made more sense if Uhura and Scotty in the previous film had done something together in the movie. Then they could have carried over into 5, and then we saw something develop there. But we didn't see that, and so it was like you said,
they could have done that as far back as 3.
Yeah,
they could have developed a relationship when they were on Earth and everything, and kind of showed indications of it.
Yeah,
but it's almost like it just came out of the blue in that one.
Yeah,
they never really went back to that again.
No, it's right, they didn't.
But I'm assuming that whatever Cybok did to Uhura, it enhanced her interest in him.
Well, this would have been before they encountered.
Well, they were, because she was buying him dinner, that little bag of whatever. And
Yeah.
you're the most understanding woman I know. So okay, there's a little flirtatiousness there. But then when Cybok has reached Uhura, Scotty is in sickbay, she's practically crawling all over him.
Yeah,
I have to tell you, I gotta get on that bag. And it's like, it's like, wait till I'm in better condition. But someone's putting a test of emotions. She's all after him. And it's like, okay, so is that what her repressed pain was, that she couldn't get after Scotty all these years?
Yeah, I mean,
in the beginning of TOS, she was interested in Spock, who blew it.
Yeah.
Not the Kelvin universe where it was totally different, but I'm just saying that. And then she was singing all these little songs throwing shade at him.
Yeah.
His devil ears and devil eyes will rip the heart from you. And he's like, yeah, I did that, So that didn't work out. So where did the Scotty thing happen? You never saw her giving him Google eyes in TOS.
That's right.
In the motion picture, they were just serving together. And then in Star Trek 5, all of a sudden, they're all flirty.
Yeah, it just seemed like they were more family than anything else. I mean, it was like, why do you want to take
now it's like there's a romantic interest developing we never saw before.
So I don't know why Shatner or whoever wrote that in there, where they were going with it. So it just, like you said, they didn't pick it up in the next movie. And
yeah, it wasn't like in 6 they had a wedding or anything.
Yeah.
Which would have been interesting, but it didn't happen.
Yeah.
But so, yeah. And now here's my thing. I'm not sure how much space there is between Star Trek 5 and 6, but I'm taking quite a bit because there were some heavy things that happened.
9 years. I think it was 9 years about, yeah.
Yeah, because, I'm in Star Trek 6, okay, we'll wait for that one. But with Star Trek 5, I'm actually almost ready for a final consensus on this movie as it is. I'm not going to say, well, it wasn't that bad. It had problems.
Yeah.
But here's my thing. I think, I don't even want to say underrated. I'm trying to go to describe this. Why don't you give your last take on it and I'll get back to you, because I think it's a broader explanation than what I can say in brief.
Okay.
How I
well, okay, yeah. To put this in a rating, like, how bad, it wasn't as good as I hoped it would have been, coming off of Star Trek 4, because that was a big success, and I think Paramount wanted to keep the momentum going into the next film.
It was not 4 by any means.
Yeah, and because of all the setbacks and the writer's strike and all the problems with the script, Paramount was sweating bullets because they were figuring, well, we're going to lose our momentum here from the previous film, and it's taken too long to get this done, and they were pushing Shatner to get it done, and he was dangerously going over budget. So there were things that he had ideas in there that probably would have made the movie better. And I think he wanted to do a director's cut of that movie, like they did with Star Trek: The Motion Picture. But Paramount said no, and so he couldn't do it. But it would have been neat after all these years for him to go back to that movie and try to do a director's cut with it and see the ideas he had that he wanted to put in the film. And I think it would have probably improved some parts of it, like especially the ending. It wouldn't look so cheesy. I think, the special effects would have been a lot better too. I think that would have helped a little bit. And I think there was some scenes that got cut and dropped out of it that, he wanted to put back in.
Yes, I remember one of the scenes. If you have the DVD, I haven't checked the Blu-ray of it.
Yeah.
You have the DVD of it. Remember the scene where I didn't mention it because it wasn't that significant to the film, where, Chekhov, the navigator of the Enterprise, gets lost in Yosemite with Sulu.
Yeah.
The navigator gets lost.
Yeah.
There's a scene where they go up to Mount Rushmore, and there's a new face carved in it.
Yeah.
Have you seen that? It was like a Native woman. Like a Native American woman, I guess.
Yeah.
So, and it was all born out of Gene Roddenberry's idea that there would be
other great leaders.
Yeah, in the future.
Yeah.
But to be honest with you, it suffered from the same thing a lot of Star Trek 5. It wasn't that greatly done in effect. It was basically a very matte painting-y Mount Rushmore.
Yeah.
And it wasn't essential to the film. It was just eye candy, basically. But it was an interesting scene. It could have done with a better budget.
Yeah, it would. Yeah, I mean, it'd been a good scene to kind of expand a little bit on the Star Trek Earth in the future a little bit. Kind of give us a little more info about what possibly could have happened to create another great leader or something like that on Earth. And
could have been worse. It could have been Kirk's face carved in Mount Rushmore.
People like me, I'm always clawing for the details between World War III and where
Right, we actually talk about that on here. Yeah. That's an interesting point in history. We always hear Starfleet, Federation, starships, and all that. We don't hear much about Earth in general. I'm
always getting bits and pieces. And we're
like you said, why is it that everybody in Earth, Starfleet is the only destination all of a sudden?
Yeah, really, yeah.
Just that whole thing that everybody wants to go to Starfleet. That's the only thing everybody wants to do anymore.
There's
still be teachers and people who are still living on Earth. Who still want to live on Earth.
Yeah.
So I mean, not everybody today goes into the Navy.
Yeah.
So why would they all want to go to Starfleet?
Yeah.
They apply. People don't, but which is interesting because if I understood it correctly, when they were first considering UPN back in the early 90s, I mean, not the original fifth network they had planned in the 70s, but when they were first considering UPN, Gene Roddenberry had the idea of doing just what you were saying, like do situation comedy set in that universe, just kind of deal with Earth at that time.
Yeah.
But when he died, they kind of abandoned all that.
Yeah. When Star Trek V came out and it underperformed to what Paramount wanted, that pretty much almost ended any future movies for Star Trek. And
right. I was going to mention that.
Harv Bennett said he wanted to do a prequel movie where the crew was young and they're in the academy.
Which is what the JJ movie ended up being. So.
Yeah, basically that's what Harv Bennett wanted to do, and eventually that got dropped because the president of Paramount retired. Yeah, the Paramount, the president.
Exactly what this is, by the way.
Yeah,
that's that movie.
The president of Paramount, he resigned, and there went that idea. So eventually,
Star Trek V was supposed to be to begin with a Starfleet Academy film.
Here we go back to the problem. How could all these characters have been in the academy at the same time? They're different ages. They wouldn't work.
So you couldn't have done it at the same time. No, that's what JJ did. But I'm just saying that with the Starfleet Academy, wasn't that supposed to be the fifth movie? The Harv Bennett idea for the Academy film.
Well, that was supposed to be the Harv Bennett's idea in the sixth movie. That's what he had. But like I said, the leadership of Paramount changed, and that idea got dropped, and they just went ahead and did a sequel to,
Well,
you know,
there was a long road from 5 to 6. I mean,
yeah,
6 was a movie. 5 was a movie that was kind of expected because we had 4 doing so well, and
yeah.
after 5, I remember distinctly. Or should I get into that with the Star Trek 6 review? What I remember about that, but okay, I'll kind of set it up. I remember there was a local fanzine. I don't know if you read it, where they had an article that was not going to be a Star Trek 6 at all.
Yeah.
Like the year after Star Trek 5 came out.
Yeah.
So I mean, when Star Trek 6 was announced, I wasn't prepped for it.
Yeah.
But the thing is that, and I'm not one of these revisionists. If a movie's not good, it's not good. But
yeah,
with 5, my description of it, I was gonna say underrated, but I can't say that. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying, but I think with Star Trek 5, a lot of people tend to have an issue with that movie between product and process. Okay. How do I explain this in a way that doesn't sound condescending or pretentious? When most people talk about a painting, say this one, this is not the process of art. This is the product of art. The process is painting this. Okay. So with Star Trek 5, I would say that the product was the production, and and the way it was done. But the process of getting there actually had some really interesting ideas that didn't get expanded on. I actually think that the idea of exploring televangelism through the attitude of the Star Trek universe, dealing with Gene Roddenberry's idea of, which they kind of hinted at in the motion picture, we create God in our own image, an inverse of what was usually said.
Yeah.
It kind of dealt with that Zybok created this vision. That was an interesting idea. But I can also see how it might be controversial, because that was actually happening during that time, with televangelism and so I can see how they could be controversial. So, but I'm gonna go out on a limb here and tell a little personal story time. I am not a religious person because I was not raised in the context of one. I was always told to choose whichever one I wanted or not. So I always saw it as more of a choice. I don't have a context for it. I have there's no ritual connected to me. I'm an outsider to it completely. I don't know how to explain it any other way. So it's hard for me to see the controversy of that, because it doesn't exist in my mind or my world.
Yeah.
It's a totally outside thing. I was not indoctrinated with it before I could walk, which most people actually are. It's indoctrination. It's a process you're indoctrinated with, and it becomes part of how you think and how you are. I have no such process.
Yeah.
In terms of religion, I might as well be extraterrestrial. I have no connection to it at all. I am a complete outsider. A complete outsider to everything. So with the movie, I saw it as like just a subject for a film. But I could see how people who might have been Star Trek fans who were raised in the religious core might have an automatic trigger. I could see that, because it sort of can make you uncomfortable if you had that sensibility. I did read that early on, but I had no core for it. I knew about it. I knew it existed, but I saw it as just a thing that existed in the world.
Yeah.
It wasn't life or anything. It was a strange thing. And it had me examining a lot of things too. So with Star Trek 5, and remember, Star Trek 5 was the first time I ever saw religion in a movie. I mean, like I said, I had not seen the Ten Commandments or anything by then. So, like I said, or anything like that, or I had not seen movies about the Quran or Buddhism or anything. I hadn't seen The Last Emperor. I hadn't seen anything about any religion. This is my first movie that had any religious subtext to it.
Yeah.
And of course, it was in a Star Trek movie. But here's the weird thing. As a concept, the religious aspect of it seemed as fictional as the movie. It all seemed like an outside thing. Yeah. Like I was studying this. And, so I could kind of see how it might be controversial on that level. But here's my thing about the product and the process of this. Okay, aside from the religion. And, this is, again, going back to Shatner. There's a lot of people, then and now, who really have a problem with Shatner. And a lot of it goes back to that Get a Life thing. A lot of the fans have had a grudge that they think that Shatner disrespects them. And he did. And I sometimes wonder, I'm just in my mind, that maybe a lot of the vitriol towards Star Trek V is not leveled at the movie as much as it is Shatner being involved in it.
Hmm.
That it's his presence in it that affects people more than what's in the actual movie. You know, because whenever you hear about Star Trek V and the problems with it, what's the first thing we usually hear?
Hmm.
William Shatner. I mean, he's usually, and that wasn't that really, again, close on to that time he made that remark in the first place?
Yeah, but I could see how there would be some sour grapes over William Shatner saying that, but if you look at the film objectively, like you said, there are some problems with it.
Right.
And,
It's just like I said, I think
it was his baby that he made. So I mean, it was again, there were things like you said, Shatner's ego getting the best of him. We trying to make something that's all about him. And
we did episode reviews. This is going
Yeah.
to come again if we do, but
Yeah.
it's again Naked Now syndrome. I did not understand what the problem with Wesley was until I saw the episode, and I saw it after the next generation. I saw it after the Next Generation was long over. It was like 94, 95. I said that. So that's why nobody likes him.
Yeah.
It's because of this one episode that ruined the character forever. Because I misremember him in Farpoint and other episodes in the first season where he wasn't that annoying.
Yeah.
And then when I saw that, I'm like, boy, that's not the same guy.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't like him. Just get him out of the...
Yeah.
He's annoying, but bring that other Wesley back who wasn't annoying. So
I mean, it's a wonder that they even did any more episodes after that second episode. It was so terrible.
So, like I said, I think, but, here's my thing. When Star Trek V came out, and the fact that William Shatner never directed a Star Trek movie in his entire life again, to this date, not another Next Generation movie, not any of the J.J. or Kelvin Universe movies, he has not directed one other Star Trek movie. I don't think he ever will.
No.
Basically, even sketch comedy, Living Color did that skit where they had the Wrath of Farrakhan, and they had that Spock character say, I'm bigger and stronger, I should be captain, I'm also a better director than you. So it's written into history that the worst director in Star Trek was William Shatner.
Hmm.
So Star Trek V has become a poster boy, I think, of not so much the movie was bad, but why William Shatner should not direct one.
Yeah.
Basically, he got everything he could possibly get wrong in it, on his level.
I mean, through that movie, we can see the way William Shatner sees Star Trek as a whole.
Exactly. He didn't take it seriously. Again, going back to that remark.
Yeah.
So it just...
It was just, sort of like, he subconsciously kind of illustrated to the fans what he doesn't understand, why we like Star Trek so much.
But here's the sad news about that. The basic source material for that movie was not bad.
Yeah, it's true.
The source material was not bad. The Zybok plotline was not a bad thing to go with. Again, it was that steak on a trash can lid.
Yeah.
It was just the presentation is where it's at with that. And and like I said, I got to be honest with you. It's a little more effective in this format, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so when you think about it, if Star Trek V comes off more accurately in a comic book, that kind of goes with the way Kirk is, Shatner's interpreting this.
Hmm.
He's interpreting it as a comic book movie.
Yeah.
That's basically the way he interpreted it. Why should I care where the decks are on the ship? Who cares if it has 90 decks or 20 decks or whatever? I'll just slap them all over the place because nobody cares.
Yeah.
To a Star Trek fan who really... Because, now I've done my share of it, and I know you've done a lot more than I, but there are people who spend, not in their basements per se, but people who spend a lot of their time studying almost like a school course, the schematics of these ships, who were very serious about it.
Yeah.
And I think that there are people who've actually designed scale models of these things. I mean, scale accurate models, which is no joke. I mean, it takes time and effort to do that, so I'm not going to knock that. I would love to see somebody build one and look at it. I mean, that's what would be a work of art, building everything scale accurate. But the fact of the matter is that people like that, or who have studied these scripts, there are people out there who want to be screenwriters who have studied these scripts, who have studied these stories. They look at Star Trek V, and they just see a nightmare coming at them.
Yeah.
They're like, they have a good idea here, and again, that trash can lid they put it on.
Yeah.
And this would not be the last time Star Trek presented an idea in a trash can lid.
Yeah.
That's a few movies away. We'll get.
Yeah.
So, and then that's going to be my thing mainly, because a lot of people don't think this movie was, but that's way ahead for us. So.
Yeah. I mean, the film felt like there was potential there for something better than it ended up being.
And I guess with me at that time, I was story focused, and you're right. I was looking at the story, but I wasn't looking at the framework of it.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the thing. If the story has no power, you look at the framework more. But when the story has power, you kind of ignore it. And my only complaint about Star Trek V was like, I want to see more about the Zybok character, but they keep not doing it, So I didn't come out dissatisfied. I came out asking a lot of questions.
If you introduce a new character in the way William Shatner did with the Zybok character, you can't just throw this character out there, especially when he's connected to one of your major characters.
Right, he's Spock's half-brother, so...
and not delve into that thing. That was a big topic that we wanted to know more about, like you said. But, when you introduce a character like that in a movie, that's going to take away focus from the rest of the story. So you shouldn't have done it that way. I think if he'd have just brought Zybok in as just a renegade Vulcan or something like that, he wasn't attached to Spock in any way, just Zybok. I think it would have been better that way, because that way there wouldn't have been such an anchor, with the movie. Like, everybody in the audience is still thinking, what happened? Why, what's happened between him and Spock? Why they don't talk to each other? And all these questions that were coming up. They don't really talk about that. They just kind of gloss over it, and then they go back to the story.
I mean, it's not like Zybok was in some deleted scene from Star Trek 4 when they were on Vulcan, and there was and they could have set it up that way, that maybe Zybok was exiled from Vulcan during that time, and Spock had an encounter with him or something, and that was set up 5 a little bit better. But Zybok came out of the blue.
Yeah, I mean,
left out of the blue.
Yeah, it'd be like all of a sudden McCoy shows up, he's got a wife. We didn't know he's got a wife, and all of a sudden.
Now we see some of that kind of syndrome with some of the Next Generation movies too, but that's a little down the line. So we're staying in the TOS Sarah crew. So is there anything else you got to say about Star Trek V? Because I think we covered the best and the rest. And that's all I can say, because there's some just nonsense that we had to deal with, I know. But we could have laughed all night over a lot of the stuff, but in the interest of getting everything into it, there are plenty of laughs. But when seeing the movie, I looked at it, and I wasn't one of these people who were like, oh my goodness, I was 9 and I remember this and blah blah blah. It was more like, you know what? And here's another thing about that movie, and any Star Trek movie, and I know I preach this a lot. When I look at a lot of media out there today, I kind of feel a little like Apollo in Star Trek. There'll be no sour faces. Remember when he's talking about Spock being like Pan?
Yeah.
My goodness, you turn on a show and everybody's sour.
Yeah.
And in Star Trek V, even in Star Trek V, you see this range of emotion. So, I mean, I don't know if it's a compliment or an insult to say that Star Trek V beats out a lot of what I see now. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. But, just in terms of emotional resonance. Now, nowadays, I often hear this thing, everything in the past was so bad, it's all so much better now. Well, okay, so writing may be theoretically better, but do I want to see good writing on sour faces? Good writing is a range.
At least Star Trek V had some character development in there, in some
Yes,
way.
it did. They did have some good character development, and that was one of the first things I noticed. Yeah. Even though one of the key characters introduced in the movie was developed just to get killed.
Yeah. I mean, they don't even do that anymore now with science fiction in general. I mean, they just, everything is action. They don't take any time.
And if the characters they're just all miserable.
Yeah.
So, that's not character development. That's making everybody miserable.
Yeah.
I mean, basically, they're one character, one grim note with a different face.
Yeah.
But you see on Star Trek V, there are characters that all have unique traits, and they're all very different.
Yeah.
And many of them don't even like each other or trust each other, but they get to deal with each other.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I like about Star Trek in general. And Star Trek V has a lot of that still. They hadn't weeded all that out yet. They're not cookie cutter, copy pasta characters that all have similar characteristics.
Yeah.
I mean, if every character in that film had acted like Zybok, that would have been annoying,
Yeah.
Or if anybody acted like Kirk, it would have been really annoying. And, let's just say this about Star Trek V. As irritating as Shatner could be in that movie, at least it wasn't... at least it wasn't season 3 level nonsense.
Yeah, at least you learned his lesson from
that. Can you
that.
imagine Shatner coming into that film with that aesthetic?
Oh, man.
Like, I can see Zybok riding on his back. Really.
Yeah, he
Lost
learned.
strength from riding like a horse, Captain. Really, at least it could have been just like, if that had been like, I'm walking out of this theater.
Yeah, it could have been One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, Star Trek. You know.
It could have been just a season 3 level. So at least it didn't go that far. I mean, the vacation going into that water was just bordering on it, but not there.
Just showing off, you know.
Yeah, I mean, you could have, if they done that in season 3 and 2, imagine how that would have been.
Oh God.
She would have gone into warp. Like, the way season 3 was. So I think she would have gone into warp in that room. So at least she's winner, you know. So I mean, like I said, the thing about Star Trek movies, though, you know, and that's not a good measuring stick, I know, because season 3 of TOS, with Kirk sinking to some lows.
Yeah.
But with Star Trek 5, like I said, I don't want to say it's underrated because there are problems with it.
Yeah.
But I think the film should be viewed through another eyeglass because, like I said, and this is one thing I have with a lot of people today. I don't know if you know, a lot of people judge a film only by how it looks.
Yeah, that's true. I don't like that. People doing that, yeah.
Oh, special effects were old and they were cheesy. And I hear that word a lot, and I noticed you mentioned it tonight, so I Googled it.
Yeah.
And, you know, of course, Google gives you different definitions. Well, the first definition of cheesy is something that has the quality of cheese, which, you know, I mean, like real cheese, like gorgonzola, cheddar, that kind of cheese.
Yeah.
But the pejorative meaning for cheese, I always thought it was tacky. It isn't. The actual pejorative for cheese is inauthentic. So I thought, boy, when people say cheesy, it actually refers to a real heavy insult. So I personally now, I could never refer to Star Trek 5 as cheesy because it's authentic, it's real.
You have to look at all aspects of a film before you give an opinion about it. You can't just judge it on
and, you know,
one side of it.
It's funny that cheesy has come into the popular lexicon where even you and I have used it, but it actually, I think often people use it in the mistake of use cheesy to describe corny.
Yeah.
Where cheesy is actually quite low, as cheesy means inauthentic and unreal.
Yeah.
You know, but like I said, again, we're reframing society right now.
Well, if you want to look at that word technically, I think every movie would be cheesy because a lot of it is not real because it's Hollywood. You know.
Well, so like I said, you know, you could say a film is usually revered universally. The Terminator 2 is cheesy because it's not real.
That's right.
I mean, but like I said, you know, oftentimes I think cheesy gets interchanged with corny.
Yeah, because I think people have lost the idea what the meaning of it is. I mean, they just use it.
Well, maybe it's like that thing we talked about in the Omega Glory where that guy is reciting the Declaration of Independence really, really poorly.
Yeah.
What was he saying? Like, perfect or whatever.
Yeah.
E plebnista, which I guess is supposed to be we the people.
Yeah.
So just really, and Kirk is deciphering that. I love how he's deciphering exactly what those words are because they're all stated in some other weird way.
Yeah.
I mean, I couldn't decipher what he was saying for the life of me when he was talking.
Yeah.
I mean, I could see he had his hands in his heart, like he's saying them plaintively, but he's like, I perfect turn, you know, blah, blah, blah. Like ritualistic versions of kind of pig English.
Yes. Kind of like
some
that.
Bizarre pigeon version of it.
Yeah.
Like I said, how could you get we the people from E plebnista?
Yeah.
It sounds like some
really slurring it. I mean, big time slurring it.
I mean, it sounds like I thought it was Latin or a foreign language at first, but it isn't. It's just really, really badly slurred English.
Yeah.
But you know, I mean, I think so. Like I said, getting out of interpretation for a minute, I think that I would call Star Trek. Here's the word: Star Trek 5 is a missed opportunity.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
That's basically a good word. I wouldn't call it underrated. It's a missed opportunity. They had something there, and when I look at it, I always see that something there. And maybe my mind is making up a script in my mind for it, what the script is going to be. Because, I said... I
think there was a lot of fear, too, about dealing with that issue of finding God.
Well, that's why I said, because I went into that without that subtext in my mind.
Yeah.
But I could see how somebody, maybe even a Star Trek fan who loved that universe, who had that upbringing, who were baptized, who'd been through all that stuff, it triggering that core sensibility.
Yeah.
Because it's like the Borg Collective, you know, or drug addiction, you know, and that's how I view it. Because remember, I have no context for it.
Yeah.
So I went in there just seeing it as a movie about religion and thinking that it's the thing that exists in the world,
Yeah.
but no righteousness. You know what I mean? It wasn't there. It didn't exist. It wasn't there to be.
Yeah.
So, I remember in my 9-year-old mind hearing some people kind of muttering about the film. And it wasn't about the fact that Shatner did this or Shatner did that, because you mentioned when you went, there were some Trekkies who instantly had problems with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it was Trek problems. It was Star Trek-related problems. If I recall, you said you went and heard some people making remarks about what they saw in the film that wasn't correct or whatever. I think it was Star Trek-related problems, right?
Yeah.
But with me, I heard some conversations that were very determinedly religious. So, I don't know. I had to have that conversation with myself about, why is it that I just see a movie with religion in it and it's just a movie, and these people are reading it like their hearts are being broken? I had no context for that.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, I was raised in a religious background, and I didn't see anything offensive in that movie at all to anything. I mean, because to me, the story wasn't about trying to justify or vilify a religion. They're just talking about, how we create them, how we...
in the end of the story, I know people who love Star Trek who are maybe even politically in line with me, who would hear that part about, Shakari, a vision you created. God is not a vision we create. It's everywhere. Oh my goodness. And people would freak out about that idea.
Yeah.
I mean, because it's something that they were raised with, and it just, it triggers it, where I had no trigger mechanism for it.
I think some people, they grow up in families that are very strict with their religious background, more so than what was in my family, I think. And I think that, you'll find that
it's very, because obviously when you went to it, you were raised in a relatively religious family, but not enough where a movie like Star Trek V would put you over the edge about it.
Yeah, they wouldn't. Yeah, it wasn't like that. So
you were like, oh, curse this evil, sinful movie. It wasn't like that. Yeah. So, but like you said, there was controversial in that aspect of it, because there were people like Zybok that existed at that time.
Yeah, a lot.
I mean, that was the era of where they had Tammy and Jim Baker.
Yeah, there was these scandals.
Wasn't Jimmy Swaggart around that time too?
Right, yeah.
Who was that guy who got involved in that scandal? The guy with the name Benny Hinn. People like Benny Hinn, the kind of TV evangelist people who were basically faith healers kind of characters. You know?
And like Shatner was trying to say, like, why is it these people keep following these guys and stuff like that when they get caught doing something wrong, and they still say, oh, well, we're still going to follow their...
Right, because remember, Cybok basically violated Neutral Zone Treaty, he stole a starship, and they're on their knees to him. And what happens is that Zybok isn't doing it to be a criminal, he's doing it because he's vain. Yeah. Because, like I said, that's why that alien on that planet, when he wanted to show Zybok God, he showed him himself and said, don't you like this face better than me? Yeah. In other words, is that what these evangelists see in the mirror, that their God is themselves? Yeah. That basically that it becomes crime and punishment, your self-deification. Yeah. They can't do anything wrong. They figure that, they're forgiven, and no matter what it is they do wrong. And they become the God they're worshiping. And it becomes right. So like I said, but there was a scene where Kirk distinctly calls Zybok a con man. And, I could see some religious zealots in the theater free associating and kind of taking that internally. But, like I said, at the time, I didn't really see that. And I used to connect that religious thing with a lot of the reasons people didn't like this movie, until every time I heard criticism against it, Shatner. It's Shatner that everybody dislikes about it. It's Shatner, what he did with the movie. I think people really wanted to see another Leonard Nimoy directed one, because people like 3 well enough. I don't think it was everybody's favorite, but they liked it well enough. They loved 4. 4 was beloved. Yeah. Now it's a little bit more measured, but it was, at the time, you could do it better than 4. 4 was the king of the movies. Yeah. And I think people still love it today, but it was just, people loved it somehow. It just something connected with people so much. Yeah. And the irony was, that was a Star Trek movie, but there were non-Trekkies who loved that Star Trek 4. Yeah. They weren't even trying. They got everybody with that. Yeah, they didn't have to fill it with fighting and violence and, that movie. Or like another movie trying not to be Star Trek that was Star Trek, which we'll get to later. Yeah. But, okay. But Star Trek 4 just made a good Star Trek movie and got everybody into it. Yeah. But I knew people in those days who would say, Star Trek is kind of an old, but I love that Voyage Home. They love that movie.
Yeah.
It's something about it connected. But Star Trek 5, I mean, I don't think it really bought anybody who wasn't into Star Trek into it.
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, I guess, like I said, it's just a lost opportunity. But I'm glad they didn't wipe it off the books. I'm glad it's here, and I'm glad it exists. And I hope they do a director's cut someday. I'd like to see it.
Yeah, me too. I hope they one day, I mean, before Shatner dies, that they get a chance to.
It's not unsalvageable. There's things you can do with that.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to see what he intended for us to see at the end of the movie, which Paramount later just cut because of the money. I would have liked to seen what he had, like angels, good and bad angels fighting with each other at the end, and it was this great big, fight and stuff at the end.
In the end, you just see this very quick thing where you just see this big thing come out of the planet.
It was supposed to be a rock creature. At first, it was 6 rock creatures. Then they said, no, you can only have 1. And then the one rock creature, the guy was dressed up in a rubber suit, and they were having...
Yes, they didn't use that guy, did they?
Yeah, and Shatner said, no, this doesn't look right. He looks too fake. So they dropped it, and they went with the special effect that Shatner really didn't like, but they didn't...
Yeah, they just used that kind of fading image of that alien.
Yeah, there wasn't any time or any money left to try to reshoot that, so it had to end up the way it is at the end. So
now, that's where the comic book did a great job, because look what's in here.
Yeah, I mean...
There's a rock creature. So this book might have been more Shatner intended to have that rock creature at the end.
Yeah, I mean, it would have made it a little more interesting at the end than what we saw, but it was... yeah, it's too... I hope that he does a director's cut of it. I mean, I know there's things he's not going to be able to change out of it, like the silliness that he had in it there with the... unless they can CGI the numbers off the the walls with the deck numbers or something, change that so it makes some kind of sense. or do something, maybe.
Of course, in your comic book, there's an image of Zybok in here that's very televangelist to me in this comic.
What's that? Oh, yeah.
That is the most... That whole thing is the most televangelist looking thing I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
That looks like something off the front of a Jim and Tammy Faye Baker fanzine or something.
Yeah.
I mean, they really play up Zybok as a televangelist in this book with all this heraldic posing, and
yeah.
Because in the movie, Lawrence Luckinbill is trying to give his character this huge amount of dignity, which I like. He's trying to make the character look regal and dignified, but in this book, they just throw all dignity to the wind, and he's just this big, posing.
Yeah, it's like monolithic guy, it's just...
It was into all this gestural kind of stuff, which is what he seemed to be, but...
maybe he made him more threatening in the movie. It might have made it better, I guess, maybe in a way. Have him more maniacal or something like that.
Because in the book, he's very... In this comic I'm reading here, he's very obviously playing this heraldic character up.
Yeah.
Who is not trying to be too overly dignified in that same way. Although... Oh, I wanted to mention something, and I want to get this right. There's a scene where Kirk is trying to record a captain's log on this device that breaks down. Didn't you say the lady handing it to him is his daughter?
Yeah.
And she was present on the bridge, and she had this kind of Yeoman Rand beehive.
Yeah.
Only without the little flip. So, and she was kind of hanging around on the bridge just doing stuff.
Yeah, and behind the scenes, she was kind of writing, So
she was kind of involved in the film.
Well, yeah, but she was also keeping a diary of the whole experience for her father, which later became a book that I got it.
Right. Now, was that the youngest daughter or the oldest one? I think he had 2 kids. Was she the one who was in Miri?
I think she was the one that was actually in a TOS episode. There was
she one in Miri?
No, not Miri, but
because Miri was one of his daughters was in Miri.
I can't remember if she even had a character name, but yeah, she was writing stuff in the behind the scenes about the problems they were having with the production, the roadblocks they were getting.
Oh boy, so she was kind of documenting the rise and fall of William Shatner in that movie in a way.
Yeah, I got the book. It's pretty interesting reading. I mean, to find out how Shatner blew his top there a few times. During he lost his temper with a lot of people and stuff, and because they were out in the desert.
I have heard about Shatner's diva tantrums, so that's not...
it was like 110 degrees, and there were people that were really...
Star Trek sets. I've heard about the the heat that those can generate.
Well, they were out on location somewhere, and it was very hot.
Yeah, that desert. Was that like the Badlands or something? It looked like the Arizona or the desert or something.
Yeah, I don't know what desert it was, but it was really difficult to film there.
Oh, one thing I wanted to add, and this is maybe an esoteric scene to you, but you remember the scene where they're on this Shakari planet, and there's this huge mountain or rock face, and there's this big light above it.
Yeah.
And then when the planet goes dark and all those things go up, they show a picture of that mountain and everything kind of darkens up.
Yeah.
That was the only scene in the movie that freaked me out. And it wasn't the scene freaked me out. But I've had a recurring dream from when I was about 3 years old to about 9 years old. And it was that exact same image.
Really? Wow.
Huge mountain going dark. And I was like, whoa! That's right out of my dream.
Huh.
You know, I mean, at first I thought I was perceiving the future somehow, because it was the exact same image, that rock face with the going dark over it.
Yeah.
I just found it interesting that showed up in that movie, and I'd had that recurring dream for many years.
Huh.
About that rock face.
Must mean.
Like, I just, that scene always struck me weird that freaked me out the first time I saw it, because it reminded me of a recurring dream that I'd had.
You had like a sense of deja vu, maybe?
Well, no, but I mean, but maybe that's a common image that people just see, because I actually seen that same imagery and used in other films.
Yeah.
So maybe it's just a recurring dream I had that had some symbolism, and when I just saw it, I was like, whoa. Now, I'm sure people have that experience in film all the time. Like, they see something that reminds them of a daydream they had, or... I just found that interesting. That scene kind of, reminded me of something that I had in my sleep or something.
Huh.
But anyway, is there anything you wanted to mention about Star Trek V? Because I think we've dug in a lot deeper than we expected, maybe.
I guess that's pretty much everything I can think of to cover with it. Except that, the Enterprise had to be repainted for that movie, because apparently when they ILM brought the model for them to use, it was damaged because they were taking that model and going to different functions or something like that. They were touring it around somewhere.
The Enterprise A model?
Yeah, they were bringing it places. I don't know why they did that, or why they just let people take that model and go all over the country with it. But when they got it back, it was damaged.
Was that a fresh model they built? Because they destroyed something in Star Trek 3. Was that the original model they destroyed?
Well, they put these black marks all over the thing, and they had to repaint it then too. They it was always the same model. What they do is they just fix it, but they had to repaint it after Star Trek. After Star Trek 2, because they had threw like dust all over it and stuff like that.
Oh, is that why some of the explosion marks weren't in the same place in Star Trek 2?
Yeah, why they added more to it and stuff like that.
Because they had to clean it up after Star Trek 2.
That's right. And so sometime between 4 and 5, they took the model and they just went places with it. And when they brought it back, the guy opened up the crate and says, "Oh, we can't film this like this." So they had to repaint 30,000 panels on that model, and it took them, and they were getting ready to wrap up the shooting of the film, and they were still trying to hurry up and paint this thing right. So if you look at the model on the screen, it looks like it's been freshly painted. It really looks white. If you noticed when they used the model on Star Trek 5, it really looks like it's really over painted white. And I think that's the reason for it, is because they were just touching it up, fixing it.
Yeah, I remember when they had the MIT model, AMT model. They always told you to paint like a whitish color.
Yeah,
I always thought it was kind of a pale gray silver in the movies.
Well, yeah, I mean, when you take something that's painted a certain way, the closer you get to the scale, when you scale up a model, the darker the overall tone of the color is going to get. Well, when you reduce that size, then it lightens everything up. That's how you make scale with something.
Exactly. There was something I have, but ephemera from this movie that I didn't bring up because it's all bent up. It's huge. It will be hard to show it on the screen. So I'll show a picture of it online. Is this? This was something that came out, I believe, for the first time during this movie. This is the cardboard Star Trek Video Collection Enterprise. Cardboard thing.
Was that where you cut it out or something and you put it together?
No, this hung in video stores.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if you ever saw it.
Yeah.
It never usually looked that nice. usually do not look that nice in the stores, but that's a really nice.
Seen that. I don't know what store it was in where I saw that cardboard.
Here they had it at Suncoast. In the Mango Mall, they had one.
They could have they squeezed that in that little store?
Well, no, it was right over the Star Trek section.
Okay.
And it did not look a thing like that. It looked like it was closer to what Picard had at his desk in the first season of TNG. Is what I'll tell you. The nacelles were all backwards, and it was.
Oh.
And my mother had to go in there and beg him to give it to me. So I got it for I think my 9th birthday or something.
Oh.
Or the Christmas that year, and when it came out, it was all. And when I had it on my room, it looked like some mango mess they'd put in the back of Space Dock and try to forget about it. Because it's cardboard, and you know how cardboard is when you try to do anything with it, it all crumbles and and this cardboard here is basically the same material cardboard boxes are made. It's corrugated cardboard.
Yeah.
It's it's painted really nice and everything, but this is not actually the Starship Enterprise at all. This is the USS Star Trek: The Video Collection.
Yeah. The
registry number is Star Trek: The Video Collection on this thing.
Oh.
So much for Patrick Stewart's claim. There is a ship that's actually called the Star Trek. And that's it. That is the Star Trek. It's called the Star Trek. If you look at it, well, it says but if you look at the bottom, see it says NCC 1701A, but it's called the Star Trek on the side. So I call that the Star Trek.
Star Trek.
Was that the Enterprise? No, that's the Star Trek.
I notice sometimes when I talk to people about Star Trek, they say, "Oh, you like the Star Trek Enterprise?" And I'm thinking, they've never seen an episode of it. I was like,
they'll say, "Oh, you like the Starship Star Trek?" Because that was Patrick Stewart's joke. I'm an aficionado of Star Trek trivia. The name of the ship on the show is not the Star Trek. Get that one. That was the Star Trek. So, because it had the Star Trek written right on the side. So whatever. But, So that was. I just remember Star Trek. Oh, yes, and the action figures. I have them downstairs, but they're underneath a whole bunch of stuff. They released these big rubberized, they're about this tall.
They were like statues, right? They're like statues. You can't pose them, could you?
Yeah, well, you could move the arms a little bit.
Yeah.
And the weird one is that I wanted Kirk and Cybok. My grandmother got them all for me, and they were not cheap.
I know they weren't. Yeah,
like $60 and $88 and $89. They were doing. So I got a whole box. That was my birthday gift, I think, that year. It was Christmas. It was Christmas. I got all that Star Trek V stuff.
Yeah.
Most of them survived.
Posable. I would have.
Bones leans way over though. He leans way because he's all. The figure that survived the most is Cybok because he's one big block of stuff.
Yeah.
Because remember, Cybok is mostly robe.
Yeah.
He's got all these robes and these furs on him, so it's this little head. It looks like Lawrence Luckinbill, except he's posed doing that thing they did on "And the Children Shall Lead." He's posed doing that. So I don't know why he's got his fist like he's gonna do. It looks like remember those kids and
yeah.
He looks like he's doing that. So, but you can move his arm up, so he kind of does that, but his hands is all in a fist.
It's just too bad they didn't make him more posable. I mean, I think.
Yeah, but remember we had this issue with Star Trek V. They made those figures with rubber bands in them.
Then they break. I mean, once they dry up and they snap, I mean, you're screwed. I mean, unless you know anything about putting things back together. I mean,
I got a Scotty. I think you gave it to me where his arm is broken in like 5 places and it all wiggles around because it's that reason.
Jeez.
They should have made rubber bands on those figures, really. But anyway, they should have made a lot of stuff for 4, but whatever.
Yeah, really. Well, the only thing I saw on eBay was they made a statue of the whales or something like that. But I don't think that was made back in the 80s. I think that's something new they made.
Yeah, Star Trek 4 merchandise was later. They never quite got the merchandise for the right movie, did they?
Yeah.
They merchandised motion picture, and that really didn't catch the kids.
Yeah.
They did nothing for Star Trek 2, and that was very successful.
Yeah.
They did stuff for Star Trek 3, and that was meh. And then 4, nothing, when that would have had great stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, although it could, I would, I would hate to see stupid stuff come out like a Catherine Hicks Memorial Barbie doll or something. I'd hate to see
a Memorial Barbie doll.
I'm just thinking of stupid items they could have put out, or even better, an Enterprise transformer that turns from an aircraft carrier to a starship or something stupid like that. I mean, they could have really lame toys for that movie, but at least we didn't get lame toys. We just got every line in the movie made into buttons.
Yeah.
So, by
Oh,
some company. I don't know.
thank God for Art Asylum. My God, they do pretty well with
Yes,
the toys.
they've been revisionist stuff. It's been better, but
Yeah.
with 5, they have those big figures. I didn't get the marshmallow thing, but you said it's better you didn't because it wasn't that great.
Yeah, it's oversized too, just like that communicator badge here with the Playmates here. The thing.
Oh yeah, this thing.
Yeah, yeah.
You're supposed to wear that on your shirt, by the way.
Yeah.
This thing. Boink.
It's like a tricorder and a communicator all in one.
Yeah, I think of those Voyager episode where they have the Playmates communicators on because they're fake. they're the giant. Don't make those communicators so oversized. You know, next time I go to a convention, I just wear those Playmates communicators, and they'll say, "Why are the communicators so big?" I'm that fake Janeway from Voyager. Remember her?
Yeah, and you got the great big pips, you know, on the size of quarters on the side of it.
Exactly. I'm the fraud Voyager. Uniform's flimsy. I'm a fraud. Remember, I'm fake Star Trek. It's a fraudulent uniform. You know, so you can, you know, but it's Star Trek conventions. Usually anything goes. People just make up their own stuff anyway.
Yeah.
So
it's all for fun.
You know, I've noticed I don't see any Zybox. Because one thing about Zybok I noticed with his costume is that he has all these little Vulcan triangle-y things all over it.
I did see somebody in Germany wearing Vulcan robe.
Was it like a Spock robe or?
Yeah, from 4. Remember the one he was wearing in that? Somebody
right,
had
that was a different robe though, because it had like puffy sleeves and it was.
And he had the hood, and when he took it back, he had ears done. So I mean, that was nice. It looked nice.
Well, yeah, that was a good one. But the Zybok robe was thicker and it had these little things on it.
Yeah, didn't it have hair in the back there, like?
Yeah, it looked like mink fur all over it.
Yeah, something like that.
It
probably wasn't Vulcan. Maybe it was just something that he made or.
But it had these little triangle symbols on it.
Yeah.
The whole idea is that I think the whole outfit was designed to blow up and down when he's riding on the horse in the beginning. Remember, he's talking about a horse. He's all this stuff floating around.
You know, done in slow. You know, to make it look menacing. You know.
Yeah, I think he's supposed to always kind of flare and just fly everywhere. I think everything's supposed to fly on him.
Yeah.
Like a wind machine. I think that was the whole idea that he was supposed to, because he had that kind of longish hair. It's like, oh, he's supposed to fly around. Everything's supposed to be very that way. Because in the comic book, he's all flying around. So he was supposed to look like he was some force of something.
Yeah.
He was making to see come out of dry eyes, like, wee, my hair is going around, and look how wonderful I am. The whole idea was spectacle, I think.
Yeah.
He was the guy who made it. I'm surprised he didn't show up on the Enterprise with the dry ice behind him, like, I'm Zybok. Look at the dry ice. I'm amazing, you know. The whole thing was vanity and kind of more concentration on appearance and look than most Vulcans would have. Yeah. Like, you know, I'm a link to something beyond you.
Yeah.
When in reality, he was just looking at himself. You know, it was navel gazing, as they call it. So I guess I'm done with Star Trek V. We've explored in little areas I didn't think we'd actually explore here, as we often do.
There's a lot of avenues here you could go with that movie, you know.
And
like you said, it was missed opportunities.
Right, and when we do the next movie, we've got 6, which, now that I think about it, I'm going to watch it on this, has got a whole bunch of little things we could deal with, and things that run outside of canon even. And things that were in the script, but that's going to be 6. So until the video after next, which I'm assuming might be 6, since we're doing the movies, this has been episode 27. We've dealt with Star Trek V. I feel no pain. I don't have to share it with anybody. So, you know, I'm all fine with this. So, live long and prosper, everybody. And using a little Vulcan, I forgot the movie. Quase 2. See you next time.